look at it. Okay, I think we might get started. It's 7:01. I was looking at my clock and anyway, welcome everyone. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So I believe Deputy Mayor Shanks will be coming. So I think he'll be here very, very shortly. So I don't have any apologies. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence, councillors? Councillor Lorna?
Yes, I'll need leave of absence from the 8th of July to the 15th of July. Please.
Inclusive?
Inclusive, yes.
Seconder, Councillor Hennessy, thank you. All those in favour, please show. Carried unanimously, thank you. There's no leave of absence. There's no non-attendance. There was going to be a deputation. However, Mr. Tooley has sent through an email. I think he shared his speech with all of you. So he's lost his voice. So I wish Mr. Tooley a speedy recovery, and I'll say some Catholic prayers for him, which he put in his email. So I think that's appropriate. Okay. Are there any declarations of interests, councillors? Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll be declaring a conflict at 5.2. Notice of motion from Councillor Solomon. No, sorry, 5.3, my apologies. 5.3, Councillor White's notion of motion. Which one? 5.3, the one to do items to be moved below the line.
But he's doing in one at
Oh,
a
okay.
time.
4, the one to do with Wilson Cemetery.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I wondered if that was it. Okay. So we'll do them one at a time. And when it comes to that second motion, I'll, if you just interrupt me and state your conflict and how you're going to deal with that. Thank you. Okay. So there should be another motion of notice. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hughes, you had your hand up.
Yeah, with conflicts of interest, 6.2 regarding the landscapes levy, I'll have to leave the room if that's voted on block, depending on how that.
15. Let me have a look. Let me have a look.
6.2
Where-
draft.
Let me have a look and see if we can pull that out. Okay, we can't really pull it out. So the landscapes levy, how are we going to manage that, Sharon? I might just check to see if you are able to stay in with.
I can't. I have to leave the room.
Okay. Sharon, normally we actually have that as a separate item with the landscapes levy. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to have to leave the room. Okay. All right. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Normally we have that as a separate item, CEO, as the landscapes levy, so that allows it to be split. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I don't think we can.
apologise. We didn't pick that up. Is there some way that we could otherwise, you could demonstrate your conflict, communicate it,
No,
all except the balance of the budget, other than for the purposes of the levy?
no, I don't think we can. I don't think we can. It's all encompassed, and I think it's a bit late. I'm sorry, Councillor Hughes. I don't have any advice to give you. I think you probably called it appropriately. You are an employee of Landscapes, and yeah, I think that's just unfortunate, but Yes. It's a shame that we didn't pick that up earlier. All right, we'll deal with that when we get there, councillor Hughes, okay? With councillor Hughes's motion, councillor Hughes, councillor Hennessy was the first person to put in a motion, and then councillor Hughes put in a motion of notice, but it didn't make it into the agenda. So what I'm going to do, and I've checked the times, the dates and the times, and councillor Hughes got in his motion just before councillor Solomon got in his motion. So I'll slot in David in between councillor Hennessy and councillor Solomon, and then we'll proceed forthwith. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we've documented those conflicts of interest, Chris. Thank you. So councillor Hennessy, we'll go straight to you, and you've got your motion you'd like to present. Oh, sorry. Yes, you may. Sorry, councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to set a bit of a context, members, for tonight's meeting. So members would recall that the first iteration of the budget that we met on, the administration presented the version of the budget that would otherwise have resulted in a $2.5 million deficit. And as we communicated at that point, we understood that that wouldn't be what the eventual budget would be, but certainly provided a sound foundation for the discussion that we had at that point. Since that consideration, the second version of the budget, which then presented a further reduction in that deficit from 2.5 million to 1.6 million. That subsequent version of the budget was then the subject of the Audit Committee's consideration. And as per the Audit Committee's consideration, again, they sought that the extent of the deficit be further reduced, and effectively, by way of resolution, sought that that reduction be some $300,000. And over the course of the last week or two, week and a half or so, at the same time that members have been considering the budget, the administration have gone back to the budget, which now forms the basis of what you have before you, which is effectively the third iteration of the budget. And the administration have presented not only a reduction of 300,000, but actually a reduction of 500,000. And so now the documentation presents a deficit of 1.1 million. Over the course of the last week or so, as individual members have been considering the budget, we've been proceeding to prepare this agenda, and individual members have presented via way of their motions various suggestions in terms of reductions. I just want to make it clear that I think what's happened as a consequence of timing and so forth, that we've effectively achieved the same quantum of reduction. That is, the administration have come up with a near on $500,000 reduction, as has the elected members. To the extent that the $1.1 million is consistent with the long-term financial plan and does demonstrate that reduction in the deficit. And we'll await the deliberations of you now. And I just wanted to impress that of the budget variations that have now been presented, the removal of the 2 FTEs is of particular interest and concern. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to reiterate that that I think that those positions are particularly critical at this time, and would otherwise, present some difficulties in terms of pursuing a raft of initiatives that we are collectively wanting to pursue. I think there has been a significant amount of information presented on the justification of those positions, but again, we are in your hands. So thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Councillor Hennessy, you've got the floor. Oh, sorry. Councillor Koch, you've got your hand up.
Just to clarify, Henry, is that option 3 in our budget papers?
We'll get to that.
I know, but just so
Yeah.
clarity for everybody, actually option 3.
Yeah, thank you very much. So councillor Hennessy, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and I take on board your words, Henry, but I'm still going to move this as a motion. If nothing else than to flag that despite several, 3, 4 meetings, I didn't feel that these two positions were well presented, and it raised questions on me. As you would understand, each of us work independently, so we all looked at the budget again and decided where we thought the best way of cutting the budget was, without any understanding that the council, that the staff were going through a similar process. I know they were from my background, but I still think that for the 4 reasons that I've put onto my my preamble, I'd like to see how the chamber feels about this motion. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say, I think I'd like to start by commending Councillor Hennessy on putting forward this motion for discussion, if nothing else. These are extremely difficult times for people, and we do need to make some tough decisions as part of this budget. And I think that being able to have this conversation is very important. I do share some of the concerns which were raised by Councillor Hennessy. I think while there were questions asked about these 2 roles, the combination of strategic and administrative tasks didn't make sense, and I don't feel like that the makeup of these roles were really adequately clarified. I think the concerns about these roles being ones which were put together to address almost areas of issue across a broad range of other roles weren't adequately weren't able to be put to rest adequately. So I think that I'll likely be voting for this motion.
Any other comments? Councillor Lorna.
Thank you for that. I'm also in agreement with Councillor Hennessy and Councillor Solomon. I don't feel that the roles that have been defined are defined or clarified enough, my understanding, to accept them as new roles coming on. I understand that we have basically an employee policy of 2 employees per year, but we've also already come up with 4. It's not sitting too well with me. Running business and the like to save your costings is pretty much at your people at the top. So I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Any, yes, Councillor Davies, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm still split on it, to be honest. I think I definitely see where the actual roles will be helpful to the council. But I do also agree about how everyone else so far has felt about clarification of the roles and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm still figuring it out.
Thank you. Any vote, anybody wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Hughes.
Just quickly, I think there have been a number of attempts by the staff to actually justify these positions. One is the delivery of an economic development strategy, a tourism plan, a business innovation hub, social and community infrastructure, ageing well framework, community plan review, youth development plan review, aged care business case. So there's a lot of work in this space that actually does need to be developed by a council. This is actually really difficult times to actually find employees at the moment. So at the moment, this council's got a lot of, or a few vacant positions that are struggling to fill. And I think the council, if this motion was lost, they'd only employ people that would be able to deliver these roles. But it is really hard to actually employ people at the moment. We're nearly in full employment, but So there have been significant savings in our employment budget, as well as the extra savings that staff have found, as our CEO has said. But yeah, I don't know what information we're going to get that's going to be different to what we've already received next year. But I do think that if we're going to ask for these plans and work with our community in business development, tourism, innovation hub, social community infrastructure, ageing well, community plan review, youth development review, and aged care with a business case. I think we need these positions, so I'll be voting against it. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Councillor Sample, yes, you've got your hand up.
Thank you,
And
Mayor
Deputy
Karen.
Mayor.
The reason I second the motion is that we have heard that the big two R's, the review and the restructure, and we have some magnificent staff that have been here a long time working in this council. And I have not seen much about or heard much about the review that was spoken about and the restructure. So the reason I'm supporting this motion is that I think with who we've got, we need to be more supportive to those staff who certainly have the ability to may well be step up a little bit. So that's why I'm supporting this, and I asked council to support it also.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, look, I've been in two minds about this particular one. And for me, it comes down to timing. We've had the economic development, like the strategy in place for many years now, but it's when we're in one of our biggest deficits that this gets put forward. And I think there's still some work to be done in that space as we evolve into trying to understand the new framework, the growth framework that's coming through. You've heard me harp on about the goal of 42. This role of Economic Development Officer feeds into that quite well. Now, I know I wasn't successful at getting that across the line, but again, it comes to timing in my mind. Because as soon as we okay these roles, they're $100,000 each from here on in, give or take. So in 5 years, yeah, you can do the math. We've committed $1 million at that time if we say yes to these roles. I see the merit of the Economic Development Officer. I had my reservations about the Senior Social and Community Officer. I'm still trying to get my head around the definition of that, which I aired last budget meeting, and that hasn't really changed too much. The one again that's sitting with me is the Economic Development Officer, but for me, I'd like to see this put forward again next year when we do have some of these strategies in hand, and when we have a better understanding of what that population growth looks like and how we're going to go through and manage it. And yeah, I know it's putting off, I think, the inevitable in that particular position, but I just don't think we can afford it. Now, the argument can be, well, I think the later we start, we can't afford not to, but it's a risk I'm willing to take while we're trying to get some strategic documents reviewed and looked at and in place coming online. So yeah, for me, I'm going to support this begrudgingly for that Economic Development Officer, but yeah, I will support it due to timing.
Councillor Koch.
Look, I'll be voting against it. I mean, I've read enough about these positions to know what their aim is and what their goals and achievements will be. We haven't really followed up on economic development. We know that. We know the community is saying that we need to work on that. We've got plans that are sitting on the shelf gathering dust. We need someone with the expertise and skills to actually implement those plans, to work across multiple sectors in our community. The senior social community planner, that's extremely important, especially with population growth, and ensuring that the community is engaged and we have the resources and the assets in place. We heard that at another council, the senior social, one of these planners actually identified spare capacity within the community and was able to support the community to use those assets and a better understanding of what's in the community, and it's a great benefit to the community. I think by waiting longer, we'll only keep on going backwards. We know that there's going to be growth. We need to take it. We need to start working on it. We've heard from the CEO that they've found $500,000, and that was borne out from the audit committee. So we knew that staff were actually working on that because that was a recommendation of the audit committee, and we actually adopted those minutes. So we do know that there is capacity within the budget. You only need to look at later on in the agenda when you go down to the final section of 6.2, when you actually look at the cash flows and all the financial indicators. It's possible to do that, to have these two positions and still get out of deficit in 3 years. I think it's 2 or 3 years. So I won't be voting for this because I think it's crucial that we get on with economic development and also that we have good social infrastructure and community cohesion. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Hennessy, you can wrap up the debate. Thank you. You're fine? Okay, thank you. The debate is now closed. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. So, Councillor Hughes, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just go through the motion that item 230796, which is the waterproofing Gawler investigations, be moved above the line. The background, in the background that I presented previously, I mentioned that water is very important. It's highlighted all the way through our climate emergency plan and different strategies. It's important for council's reserves, our green spaces, the industries, and a lot of those industries employ a lot of residents. I, like most of the residents in Gawler, just recently got my SA water bill. Water is very, very expensive, and it is possible that going through these strategies of waterproofing Gawler, we can make substantial savings. So there is a possibility of savings. We've already heard tonight that 500,000 has been taken out of the budget, plus the 2 positions just recently. So there's substantial savings to cover this money to carry out these investigations. But we have been asking for a very, very long number of years to actually budget for some work in this area, and unfortunately we haven't funded it over the years. This is one of these that has been knocked back a number of times, and I think Joe, we need water, and if we want to have green spaces and work with our community in reducing costs, and the cost of water is only going up, we need innovative ways to actually green our spaces and try and get cheaper water. So yeah, I'd hope that people please move this over the line. Thanks.
Before I go any further, the previous motion was carried, not unanimously.
Yep.
It was carried. Thank you. Now I understand what you were saying, Councillor Hennessy. I didn't pick that up. So are you happy to second that motion, Councillor Davies? Do you wish to speak at all?
Yeah, I think this is something valuable. I think hopefully due to the timing, we sort of had our IES meeting after our last budget discussions, where there was some more clarification on what waterproofing Gawler might look like. Because I think from our budget discussions, I think there was a sort of general idea that it was a fun thing to do for when we had a drought, rather than, I guess, you know, the equivalent of solar power for water, just saving money on water by having a town that is efficient in its use of water. And I think that's a massive savings over the long term, and I'd like to see the plan.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Solomon, you're next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I will be supporting this motion. I originally asked that it be moved below the line, but since that time I've had some clarification on exactly what it is, and I think it is an admirable thing which does save some money, so I'm willing to accept that. And I think it is really important to be honest about what this is. It's not going to mean that we're able to use recycled water for households necessarily. It's not, we're not going to immediately start selling or, buying water from other councils. It's not that grand, but I think it does make some significant savings and obviously allows for us to look at how we're using recycled water for councils' water use, particularly in our green spaces, heading into maybe what is, into what is going to be a significant change in climate patterns leading into this. I will just say as a closing remark, I do want to steer away from the kind of rhetoric that voting against this is voting against action on climate change. I think sometimes that can be a little unhelpful because we do need to make hard decisions here. And, I wouldn't turn around if someone was putting something above the line and say, you're against people being able to eat because you want to increase the rates. So I just want to be careful in the future how we address that, but I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Sample?
Just a question first through you, Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
Do I remember correctly? I think this was a $60,000 budget item.
I don't have that in front of me, but I think that was Sharon is looking and she will give you that answer very, very shortly, Deputy Mayor.
50?
60,000.
It was 60? Yeah.
60.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's all right. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, look, I'm going to be in support of this. So I was against it moving below the line and sort of acknowledging that I probably had a bit more to do with the Climate Emergency Action Plan working group and learning in this space, and still definitely learning in this space. But I saw the benefit of moving forward with this particular investigation and look forward to the outcomes that something like this will come if we can actually get it above the line this year. Yes, I do acknowledge Councillor Solomon's sentiment in, we do have to make those hard calls and
we do.
that is part of the role. And yeah, there is no right or wrong answer here. It's just this particular investigation. I do hold a high value in those investigations. So, and especially after talking with staff throughout the process of the Climate Emergency Action Plan as well. So, yeah, hopefully we can get some support on this and get moving on some of that great work to start seeing those return on investments that this sort of investigation will be able to show.
Councillor Sample, you're next.
Thanks, Mayor Sharon. No, I just wonder whether members understand how much money this council is spending on the Gawler River floodplain management. At the moment, our representative is Councillor Koch, and the information coming in at the moment, they're finding it really, really hard. And what I'm talking about, the Gawler River floodplain, for those that don't know, it means this whole area and the conservation of water. I don't disagree with what Councillor Hughes and others have said. Water is such an important thing, but over time, at the moment, we're trying to reduce our expenditure, and I think that's where it's set. And if you like to read the minutes or find out about the amount of money that very soon we're going to be in the budget to be able to hand over to the Gawler River floodplain management. And in the last 5 years, I haven't seen a lot of adjustments to saving water. That's my own personal opinion. And I just, if we're going to save money, we've got to start somewhere. And this is one thing we can hold over, I believe.
Councillor Koch, you're next.
Yeah, look, I'll be supporting this. We need an overall strategy, because otherwise we're just doing something here, something there. It's not integrated. For example, we implemented water with actually the gypsum blocks, and they go in the ground and you actually measure the water content in the soil, and that turns the sprinklers on and off and all that sort of stuff. I think we saved $90,000. Is that right? Close to $90,000 just by implementing that strategy, by actually managing and monitoring the water content in the soil and only irrigating when we need to. So it's all those sort of things. It's managing the water, being smart about the way we manage water. So just that one thing, we've saved $90,000. We spent 60,000 here, but I suspect that's be multiplied by 10, I reckon, by the time we, you know, the strategies that we put in place to actually use water really, really efficiently and effectively, because otherwise you can tend to just splash it around, but we need to be really clever.
Is that a pun?
Yeah, yes, that's true. Yes. I mean, I have worked in this area a fair bit, and if you're clever about it, you can get a lot done with a minimal amount of water. I've worked up in the arid zone where we had not very much water, and we were able to produce stunning landscapes just through managing the water correctly. So, you know, I'm fully supportive of this.
Any other discussion at this stage? I'm going to go back to you, councillor Hughes. Do you want to wrap up the debate? Are you happy for me to put the motion? The debate is now closed. I'm going to put that motion, waterproofing Gawler investigations. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Councillor Solomon, you're next. Now, I've just, yep, okay, I'm up ready for you. Sorry.
Yes, yep, no, thank you, Mayor. So this item, this is the CCTV camera for the Sports and Aquatic Centre. It's quite a big item, in terms of cost, for that CCTV upgrade. It's not, once again, it's one of those things, it's not that this is necessarily a bad thing, it's just that on the balance, this is an extremely large item, and where we're, you know, able to identify what's really critical here is what's going to end up in the budget and what's going to mean, you know, make the difference between gets voted below the line. I think with this one in particular, we've had that opportunity to discuss whether this is something which, you know, is really affects staff safety. And in my view, it hasn't been put forward that is really going to for sure improve staff safety in the area. Those kind of things around making sure there's appropriate staffing at the swimming centre, I think, are more important focuses. There's not much evidence that this is going to increase staff safety at all. Rather, it would just assist police in looking at things after the fact. And so that's why I put this motion forward, because we do need to cut some things out. And in my view, this is slightly more reactive than proactive.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lorna, do you wish to speak?
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion. Having worked in the industry for quite a number of years, unfortunately, putting cameras out on sites don't really deter people that are going to do things. All it's going to do is, maybe if you get the right image, is get the enforcement law or the laws to actually maybe apprehend these people. Unfortunately, you can see now, watching on the news tonight, some guy in I think he was in a survey, just unleashed with a hammer over the front counter, fully known, fully good security. It didn't bother him a bit. People are not great at times and going to do things. Having the cameras up there on their own aren't really going to deter people that are up to mischief. Better signage has a bit more of an effect than actually just putting up the cameras. There's other situations that I won't talk to tonight that can be done to allow the presence to be known more so. I'm really struggling with the costings of a lot of these things. I've requested through to Henry and that for costings of these actual projects to break down, because it's not marrying up to what I've worked with and done before. It seems to be overinflated, whether we are being taken for a ride or something along those lines. I'm not sure, and I can't put my finger on it at the moment, but it seems to be extremely expensive. We really need to, if we're going forwards instead of the security cameras, we really need to have a strong and defined strategy of how we're going to develop it and what it's going to look like going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, obviously, councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what's been said. I think we have to look at other ways of dealing with the management of increased disorderly behaviour. So I'm going to support this. But can I just say that I'm particularly offended by the statement in the report that says that the police have commented that the increase in antisocial behaviour being displayed at the Aquatic Centre has partially attributed to the opening of the train line after it's been closed for 2 years. To me, that smacks of discrimination, and it didn't help the position of the claim.
Thank you, councillor White. You're next. Now, did you have your hand up, councillor Davies? Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
councillor White.
thanks, Mayor Redmond. Yes, I'll be supporting this motion too. First of all, I think while these incidents are absolutely inappropriate, for the greater benefit of the community, I'm unsure whether this expense is the correct use of resources in reducing antisocial behaviour at the Aquatic Centre. Members of SAPOL have confirmed to me that while CCTV is great for capturing incidents and following up, as a deterrent, it's just as good, as been mentioned, to put up large signs that state CCTV cameras are in use. Clearly, there is a serious issue of antisocial and inappropriate behaviour at the Aquatic Centre, and that needs to be dealt with. But as council, we're the landlords of the Aquatic Centre, and this behaviour, it needs to be dealt with by stopping it at the very start, in my opinion. There are more effective methods of doing this rather than upgrading our CCTV, whose main purpose is to capture incidents. However, for the entirety of the Gawler community, I believe that we can investigate these other methods to reduce these hazards other than spending the $90,000 on a CCTV camera that will not necessarily limit the incidents from the start. So I'll be supporting this motion.
Councillor Davies, thank you.
Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, I think I'll be supporting it too. I am sympathetic to the, like, if we were to do a review of all of our CCTV, this would be one of the higher priority CCTVs I would have to keep, I think, because compared to some that we already have that don't necessarily do as much. But as people have said, for the price tag and what we'll get, what we'll get out of it, it doesn't seem like it all matches up right now. So, yeah.
Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I'm happy to I'm not real happy, but to support the motion. But I do think we need to protect our staff and consumers of our facilities. So I think it may well be a motion on notice that we get a report back on the CCTV. And I mean, there is, as Councillor Lorna said, lots of different ways. Our staff are now wearing body cameras, and that really changes behaviour for compliance issues. It's amazing having body cameras. It's really a game changer for national park rangers. It's huge difference in behaviour straight away for a majority of people. So yeah, there are different methods. So I think a report back and further investigations before we do spend money in this area. So yeah, happy to support it.
I look forward to that motion on notice, councillor Hughes. Councillor Koch, you've got your hand up.
I've been swayed by the argument tonight, and mainly that we're going to look at other strategies, not just the CCTV. So I'm happy to support it now.
Okay. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor, just going by memory, I think that project was about 90,000.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'm all for staff safety. Going to work and feeling safe is a right. I get that. But yes, I like others, don't see CCTV providing that safety of what the concerns that have been raised. Looking at other options, you can get a security guard for a few $100 on these high events, and you've got a lot of security there for a long period of time before you get close to $90,000 in the short term, if that's going to assist while we figure out a long term. But right now, yeah, $90,000 on that project. Unfortunately, again, it's one of those heavy hearts, but yeah, we just can't afford it. That's the crux of it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, councillor Solomon, do you want to wrap up the debate?
Briefly, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I'll just wrap it up briefly, and I'd just like to thank everyone for that contribution to the discussion, because I think that's it's been really beneficial, because everyone is really concerned. Everyone is really concerned about staff safety at the swimming pool, but there may be better ways to address this. And so I'm really looking forward to that suggestion, which Councillor Hughes mentioned, about looking at other ways which we can do that. Getting a report back on that, I think, would be really good. So thank you everyone for the discussion, and happy to go to a vote.
Thank you. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. That's unanimous. Now, councillor White, I'm going to do them one at a time. So we'll do the first one first, and then when we get to the second one, I'll ask councillor Hennessy to declare her conflict, and we'll work through that. Okay? So you've got the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll speak generally for all of the motions, but obviously
One at a time.
We'll get, yes. What I'll say now can be applied to all of the motions. However, so the purpose of the motions are to move items below the line for the draft budget. And the reason I've proposed this is to reduce the expenses of council, therefore minimising the increase to rates for our ratepayers. Currently, the biggest concern for many people in our community is the cost of living. Rising interest rates, inflation, and high cost of everyday goods means it is difficult for many families and residents in our community. All community members I speak to consistently want two things from their council: minimal increase to their council rates and opportunities to bring in more money into our town. Therefore, council needs to be keeping an increase to our rates to a minimum. The way to do this is to reduce spending as much as we can and bring more income into our council through alternative methods other than rates. While these items may have merit, we must be cognizant of what our ratepayers are asking for, and that is to minimise the increase to their council rates. At this point in time, and the financial strain being put on our ratepayers, now may not be the time to go ahead with these initiatives. That is not to say these projects cannot be reconsidered or put into place down the track. But I believe for our ratepayers that it is at a time where the financial environment, it needs to be at a time where the financial environment is more stable for our community. We have a responsibility to look after our ratepayers, especially in this difficult financial time when many members of our community are finding it tough. And a surge in their council rates in the new financial year would make it even tougher. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for the first motion? We're doing them one at a time, just so you're aware. Did I see your hand up, councillor Samble? I think councillor Samble pipped you at the post. So seconded by councillor Samble. Do you wish to speak, Brian, at all? No? Thank you. Discussion? Deputy Mayor? And then I'll take councillor Lorna. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I definitely get the sentiment, councillor White, and I don't disagree with a lot of what you've just said. As we're going through these line by line, I thank the Mayor for doing them separate motions as we are. The electric vehicle transition and charging plan for me actually sets a foundation on how we're going to be setting up our transition to electric vehicles as a whole. And how we can benefit from that. I mean, obviously, having an electric car over a fuel-driven car is a lot cheaper if we want to talk about dollars only. But emissions-wise, it's a lot less as well. So there's a lot of boxes that we're ticking by doing that fleet transition, which is something that is one of our goals. And it doesn't even matter if you're someone that believes in climate change or not. If we want to talk dollars, this is a very strategic approach. The electric vehicle transition and charging plan for me is that roadmap on how we're supposed to roll it out to be the most effective. So this line item, and once again, I absolutely agree with the sentiment, but long term, as we transition, I see us needing to get underway with this particular work at the $15,000 that it's going to cost for the next financial year. I see that as a worthy investment. So with this one, I'm going to speak against it. Tonight, I won't be able to support this one.
Thank you. Now, councillor Lorna, you're next.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Shanks and Councillor White. I agree with both of the sentiments that have been put out by both you guys. However, I will be supporting moving this below the line. I believe that the electrical vehicles and the charging is not really at its defined peak at the moment. The industry in that is changing quite a lot throughout time, quite rapidly. And that's given it another 12 months' time, that's the infrastructure and that will be a lot more stable. There'll be a lot more EV vehicles that'll be accessible to a lot of people that can afford to buy these things. That I think in another 12 months' time, we can really start adopting into the market and having a better view of what's actually out there. So I'll be supporting this.
Councillor Koch, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I won't be supporting this. I think the EV revolution is on us. There are a lot of affordable electric cars now. For example, there's a lot of Chinese versions, very affordable. I think the charging mode or systems have, I think that it's going to go to CCS2. I think that's going to be standard. I don't think the other types are going to, they're going to lose out. The CHAdeMO, for example, I think you're going to lose out with the CHAdeMO and it's going to be CCS2. That's basically the standard. So I don't think there's going to be any issue around the charging. I think there's going to be more DC charging publicly and less AC charging. So I think that's been set now. So we actually are at a point now where EVs are actually becoming part of mainstream motoring and people are getting on board. This strategy will help us work out how we move into the EV world and set the pathway not only for the fleet for council, but also for the community. We need to know how we're going to charge those vehicles, where we're going to buy them, et cetera, et cetera. And when we talk about bringing people into Gawler, there is a thing called EV tourism, where people actually look out for EV chargers. For example, I went away last weekend and specifically stayed in towns that had access to charging points that I could use. Well, that was only AC, but that's where I planned my holiday, that holiday away around where the EV chargers were and putting money into that economy. So I think we need to get on with it. We've been talking about it. And in my view, that the EV world is actually quite mature now. And I've been involved with EVs for over 12 years now. And I think it's pretty well set now where we're going. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
You're supporting the motion? You're just checking. I was just checking. Okay. No worries. Okay. No problem. I just thought I'd check. Now, I think Councillor Hughes, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just briefly, I'll be speaking against the motion. I think the EV wave hasn't hit us yet, but it's going to hit in a big way and we need to be prepared for it. And we need more charging and strategies. And I think it's something that we really need to be on the front foot with, because if we want to be a tourism town, if we want to be on the map with vehicles coming in and electric vehicles knowing they can get a quick charge and everything else here, maybe while they're shopping or whatever else they're doing in the town, I think we need to be on the front foot. So yeah, I'll be voting against this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Councillor White, you can wrap up the debate if you like.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes. Thank you, members, for your input and appreciate that that the sentiment at the start applies to the motions I've listed, but more specifically with the EV charging plan. I don't disagree with a lot that's being said. I'm fully supportive of the EV revolution that is inevitably coming. I just think in the current climate for our community, it's not the right time to be investing $15,000 into a plan for EVs. I think that we need to be conservative with our spending. It is the current climate. Down the track, fully support heading in this direction. But at this current time, I think there is better investment for our community and we really need to be on the saving side of things to ensure our community's key need of keeping the rate increase down is met. So I ask members for that reason to please support this motion. Thank you.
The debate is closed. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is lost. Thank you. Now, before you start, councillor White, I'll ask councillor Hennessy to declare her conflict.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm going to declare a general conflict of interest. And the reason is that I am the chair of the Friends of Williston Cemetery, which is a community group which liaises with council staff on matters pertaining to the Williston Cemetery. I intend to deal with this matter in a transparent and accountable way, and I will remain in the room and vote in the best interest of the community.
And you participate in the debate? Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, so thank you, councillor Hennessy. Now, councillor White, back to you.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, councillor Hennessy. I'm glad that you're staying in the room because I will value your opinion and input on this. Again, this same principle applies to this, but I'm not going to speak for too long at the moment. I just believe that this is another project that I've identified for the community that we could be not spending at this time. However, I would like to hear from other members on this before I guess make my decision in best interest of the community. But again, same principles applies. I believe that the $40,000 that we've got penciled for this project could be saved at this point in time.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sample, I'll just allow the minute taker to add your name. Thank you. Discussion? Any discussion at all? Councillor Davies?
Yeah, I'll be voting against this one. I think this is one that it's just been delayed for a long time. And I just feel like it would be, we do need to get to it. And it's the kind of thing that once we get all this sorted out, you know, we can sort out grant funding and all these other things, but yeah, I think this is just one that, I don't know, it's been stuck behind for a while now.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, you've got your hand up.
Like councillor Davies, I'll be voting against this. It's actually one of our most important places, the Williston Cemetery. It's amazing how many people go there and the history and the headstones.
We just have one person speaking,
Yeah,
please.
thank you, councillor Malalonga and councillor Sam. And
Can you please be quiet and allow councillor Hughes to speak?
I'm just
Thank
talking
you.
about a cemetery, which is an important place for our community. And yeah, these headstones, some certainly need some work, and it is frustrating sometimes when you do see things that need to happen and processes and has been delayed. So I think it'd be good to continue the process.
Thank you. Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to limit what I say because I think the officer have provided us with information back. But I should reiterate what councillor Hughes says. It's not only, it's a recreational space. It's actually a tourism space, believe it or not. And I just think it's a project that's been long awaited and promised to the community. And I think by having this project done, we will, as councillor Davies said, put ourselves in a position to be able to then apply for state heritage grants. It is a state heritage area, and we won't be able to do that without this prior work being done. Thank you.
Any other discussion, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just had a question through you, Mayor.
Yes.
Am I right to say, so I keep on trying to catch up with this item, but I think this has been ongoing since 2014 when we started looking at
The
headstone.
new, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
then,
true. I think that's, I
yeah,
think
so
you're right there.
we're nearly 10 years in,
Nearly.
yeah, nearly, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, look, I came in with an open mind tonight about all motions as we all have to. If we hadn't just got to the saving level of 230K as we start working through, this might have been something that I might have begrudgingly said, well, pushing it out another year. But the fact I don't feel we have to with that particular project is why I'm going to vote against this. I I will also thank you, councillor White, for supplying the costs next to those.
Yeah, that's
things.
quite helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it-
councillor
it
White.
is. And I apologise for not doing the same as we work through. But yeah, the way that this one sits, it's just been on our to-do list for way too long, and there is a level of I guess responsibility that I don't think we have undertaken in this space in too long to put it below the line yet again. Yeah, so I'm again going to vote against this one.
Any other discussion? If not, councillor White, you can wrap up the debate if you like.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, members, for your input on this one. Again, I think everything that was said has got merit, and I don't necessarily disagree with the merit of this project. My concern is it's a concept plan detailing where these things are happening. $40,000, it's a lot of money. And yes, we have made savings, that is true, but we treat everything on its, respect. $40,000, it's a lot of money for a plan. And my concern is we are spending these money on these plans, and they do just sit there on the shelf and they don't get put into place. And yes, while there is the possibility of receiving grant funding to go through these plans, at this point in time, I'm going to repeat myself again, we're not in that financially stable environment for our ratepayers. And that is where I have a problem spending $40,000 on this. So thank you all very much for your input, but I will urge you for that reason to support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. The debate is closed. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against? It is lost. Thank you. Now, tree management strategy. Councillor White, back to you.
Thanks, Mayor. Back and forth all night.
That's okay.
Yeah, so again with this one, this has got great intentions, this plan, but again, it's $35,000 for a plan which formalises council's position into increasing tree canopy around Gawler. I, again, do not believe at this point in time we should be spending $35,000 on a plan to work out where we're going to be planting trees. I'm not saying that tree planting is not important, it absolutely is, but I think holistically, where I'm coming from this evening is looking at this from a high level point of view, which is what we are here to do, is should we actually be dedicating $35,000 of ratepayers' money to look at where we're going to be planting trees? Because to me, that seems absurd, especially in this time where people are struggling to put food on the table and rates are going to need to go up to fund these projects. That is where I'm coming from with this plan. And I would ask, please encourage debate. I think it's fantastic, robust debate and discussion we're having tonight. But again, that is the position I'm coming from on behalf of the community. So thank you.
Seconder. Councillor Vallelonga. Just allow the minute taker. Thank you. Discussion. I saw you first, Councillor Solomon, and then Councillor Koch.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be speaking against the motion. I think I understand what Councillor White is saying, but to me, tree management is a very important thing. It's important in a whole range of ways, whether it's what we were talking about before, or with addressing climate change, or looking at the growth of our town and the development which is happening. We need a tree management strategy which is up to date. We need one which is able to look at our service levels. I know Councillor Koch has raised it several times about over pruning of trees. The service levels are too high in some areas, maybe too low in others. We need to get that kind of information. But also it does, affects the ecosystem around the town. And we need to be very careful as we're developing and as we're, looking to plant more trees around those developments, that we're actually planting the right trees in the right places, and that we're not, destroying the ecosystem that exists, the unique ecosystem that exists there. So I'll be voting against this motion.
Councillor Koch, you're next.
Yeah, I'll be voting. And I'd just like to say what a great what you just said. I mean, a lot of what I was going to say. Interestingly, we actually had, we did an audit of our tree practices a couple of years ago. And what we found out was that we were over pruning and pruning, so pruning too often and using the wrong pruning technique. So basically, we were actually hurting the trees. We also identified all the spare spaces we'd put trees in. So what this plan would do is, it's the next step away, next step from the audit. It actually is basically it's an implementation plan, because it'll actually be able to work out the sequence that we need to plant the trees, the best trees to plant, and also we'd actually also look at the pruning schedules, because what happens is some trees need to be pruned every 3 years, some every 5 years. So by doing that, we'll actually be saving a lot of money, because we'll have a coordinated, efficient, effective management of our trees and our overall tree canopy, our urban forest. So it's the next step from where we had the audit. It's now getting the plan that we can actually implement and move forward with the greening of Gawler. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, I saw you next.
Yeah, I'll also be voting against it. This is another one that's been knocked back a few times as well. And this is one where if we spend money, we will actually save money. So we've got a lot of areas where in our town, we've got no street trees. We've got big vacant areas. As Councillor Koch said, we've got those plans. And recently we've seen when we've been planting trees, it's $1,000 per tree. We want to make sure we're planting the right species, and so they do well. We want to, as Councillor Solomon said, we want to reduce those heat sinks. We want to work towards climate change. When you go to a community meeting, and recently there's been a few community meetings held for planning matters across the Mid-North and York Peninsula, it was quite amazing that green spaces and trees rated really highly, like, and these are amongst planners, which you wouldn't, and different business people and things like that, just how important green places are to people, and how important they are to townships and to try and get temperatures down. And with climate change, we know we need to get those species selection correct as well. And yeah, I think this is one where we'll actually save money. And this is a service that the community actually need and want. And this is actually a savings as well. So we do have those empty spaces for trees throughout our town, and we need to get those green spaces going. And this strategy, unfortunately, has been knocked back a couple of times previously. But I do see it as a cost saving. Especially if we're not pruning as much, those staff are doing other roles. So it definitely has a lot of scope, and the staff actually went to a lot of trouble responding on this one on a large number of points of why we actually need this strategy and how it will help the town. So yeah, I'd urge everyone to actually vote against this for our green spaces. Thanks.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, I'll be voting against this one. I do acknowledge what Councillor White's saying about, plans. There is such a thing as an unnecessary plan, that sits on the shelf and that sort of thing. But a plan that's done right, the reason that costs $40,000 is because we're planning to save $1 million with it. And sometimes things like trees can, just a single set of tree planting can outpace the spending of this, something like a plan. So, I think, yes, not all plans are necessary, but this seems like a necessary plan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sample, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Ben Karen. Yeah, it's interesting. I heard Councillor Koch say that there's already been I mean, over the last 5-6 years or even more, there's been a lot of those plans, and this money, as Councillor White has said, is going into developing a plan for greening Gawler. And Councillor Davies mentioned that the plans sit on the shelf. Well, that was the truest thing I've heard you say for a long time, Councillor Davies. And they must be sitting on the shelf, because I have heard of a lot of these tree projects that have gone on. And I mean, the Gawler Connector Road, I went down there today and there's about 10 brand new trees planted there. And I was in the doghouse, so I took my wife to Vidulis's for a coffee, you know, to get out of it. And Milton came up to me and said, I like the new trees that have been planted down on the Connector Road. So went back, had a look at them on the way back. He said, that's what should have been planted there in the first place. Councillor Hughes said we paid $1,000 for the other ones that are leaning over like somebody been on the booze all night. Just have to go and have a look at them now because the foliage on the top is so strong that it's actually laying the tree over. The actual stem of the tree is not strong enough. I mean, what Councillor White is saying here, if we had, you know, some good money in the kitty, we're trying to reduce this budget, this can wait. Very much like the headstones, they're not going to go anywhere. They've been there for a long time now. And we've got to support these things if we're going to bring that down.
Thank you. If there's no further sorry, Deputy Mayor, I can see your hand up there.
No, that's okay. Firstly, thanks members for the debate. It's been quite helpful for myself to be able to come to my decision as well. And secondly, I get the sentiment of making a plan to make a plan, to make a strategy, to make a framework. You know, 5 years of pointing this out, I get it. I'm not necessarily coming around, but I do understand some of the strategies that come into place and trying to get the actions, get them happening. I do sort of agree with Councillor Koch as well that this is a step toward seeing those boots on ground action, and it has been a long process, which is also something that we get used to in local government as well. But these processes and these strategies that do come online do actually provide that information that we're not just pulling the trigger, we're not reactive, and we're trying to be proactive. This particular strategy is that, in my opinion, but the onus will be on us to ensure that we're seeing these actions roll out and we're clear on making sure that we're getting return on investment. I think that is our role as an elected member. So yeah, I'm putting trust in keeping on following the process in staff to start showing that return on investment in this strategy, and also using this particular step in the process to tick those boxes on our climate actions that we're trying to achieve, while also showing that return on investment, which we all equally want, right? So this particular one, once again, because of what I'm begrudgingly going to vote against, but once again, I thank you for putting it up to be able to continue these conversations, because they are quite valuable.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, Councillor White, you can wrap up the debate.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you members for your input. Again, if you could humour me for a moment to use a little bit of an analogy. First of all, I, again, agree with what has been said, but if you're out in the days before credit cards and you had $10 in your wallet instead of $50 and you're looking for lunch, you don't go to a high-end restaurant to get lunch. You go find something a bit cheaper. That is what we need to be doing right now. We don't have the $50 in our wallet. We have $10 or less. So we need to be looking at ways to achieve these important goals, but for less. That is how I see this. I'm not saying tree planting is not important. It absolutely is. But $35,000 to form a plan of how we're going to plant trees. Councillor Koch pointed out some really important points of how we need to be managing our trees and how by looking after them, we can save money in the long run, of course. But maybe now is not the time to be spending $35,000. Maybe it's about using the resources we have. Maybe it's about looking at new, innovative, cost-effective measures to achieve those same or similar goals, but for a fraction of the cost. That is where I'm coming from with these motions. Sorry, excuse me, because members of our community are really, really struggling, and they're watching tonight, they're watching us, and they're sitting here and they're watching us keep these motions above the line. And yes, we've made some savings. Yes, staff have. Yes, the audit and risk committee have. That's fantastic, but we can't stop. We can't become complacent, because it's tough out there for many people in our community, many I know personally. So while it might seem like $35,000, it's just a 5-figure sum, okay? The more we can just slowly chip away, let's change the way we do things from a holistic point of view. Let's work with the environment instead of making these things becoming more and more in debt and charging our residents more and more and more. That's where I'm coming from. Now, I'm not going to hold any personal grudges the way you will vote tonight. Of course not, okay? You are all here to represent the same community I'm here for. But I just ask that you keep that in the back of your mind because it is not easy for many people out there at the moment. Apologies, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. So thank you.
Thank you. The debate is now closed. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is lost. Thank you. Now, councillor White, your final motion, if you'd like to present that.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you. Excuse me. Yes. Right. This is a little bit of a bigger one. It's a bit of a bigger saving that could be had here. I understand about cars. I understand about optimum selling time. I thank staff for providing myself and all members with information about current mileage, condition of the cars, what we have, what we're looking for, etc. Thank you very much. Again, I just see this as we're going to need to replace our council fleet. It's not a cost we can just rule out. But again, in our current climate, this is the question I'm asking the elected members tonight. Is this something our community can wait on a year in order to spend this money and we keep maintaining our cars as it is at the moment and replace them next year? The current car market is going quite strong. I can't see, without being an expert in the market too much, I can't see that we're going to lose too much value by maintaining them for the next 12 months. But again, in this current climate, this is a very simple saving. We can consolidate our savings and relook at this in the 24-25 budget. So I think everything I've said tonight applies to this as well, but obviously it's a bit of a larger saving. So I just ask that you consider that from that point of view, that yes, it's not ruling it out completely in the future. Of course not. We council staff need vehicles, but maybe at this current time, it is something we look at deferring down the track a little bit.
Councillor Lorna, you wish to second?
Thank you very much. Firstly, councillor White, well done you for really putting yourself out there and trying to make a real difference here. I'm in favour of this. I attempted to move it below the line at the last meeting that we're at. Unfortunately, it didn't come out. So I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to it again. Of this, basically, we all like to get flash new cars. What I can pretty well say here is our community does not like getting rate increases. So the way the current car market is at the moment, I can't see that we are going to lose so much. I'm pretty sure we don't have layers in our cars that are actually running around and running them into the ground and absolutely thrashing them. They are going to still probably be in the same condition in 12 months' time as what they are, with a few extra Ks in them. So I'll fully support you, councillor White, and thank you very much.
Councillor Sample, you're next.
Thank you. Totally agree with Councillor White and Councillor Lowner. And since this matter was raised and we received all our papers, I actually went to a number of used car dealers, certainly in the town here, and asked about the value of second-hand cars. And as I've said before, the way that this council looks after the vehicles and their rulings, the car's only got to have a rattle when it's in and it's fixed up, or you know, not like Mick's, it might rattle and he'll say I'll fix it up in 2 months. I mean, I'm the same, but these council cars are in perfect condition. And I've said it before, I would be very proud to buy one when it goes to auction, and it definitely can hang on for 12 months. And the dealers who I know and own the car yards have said that there's not going to be much difference in what you're going to get now to what you're going to get in 12 months, because second-hand cars are really in demand because new cars aren't available. So please support this motion.
Councillor Hughes, I saw your hand next.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'll be voting against this motion. It's actually 24 months if we knock this on the head, that staff will be waiting for a vehicle, because the expected delivery of new vehicles at the moment is 12 to 18 months wait time. So there is quite a long wait time for delivery. I think, Joe, if we allow this budget item to go through, the orders go in, it may not actually be charged to this year's or next year's budget, it may be the year after. But yeah, I know that the delivery is going to take a while. Also, a lot of the dealers are actually honouring trade-ins at valuations at now's value to lock those orders in too. So they're actually doing, because they know that they're going to have to wait a long time for these vehicles to actually be delivered to the market as well. So there's a massive delay in getting vehicles. I think council has always had in some regards, that they've actually held on to vehicles maybe too long, and especially some of the trucks and tractors and things like that in the past. It's been it's a fine balancing act, but I do think that the council has been responsible in the past, and I think delaying this when we've also got then the future delay of actually the vehicles actually turning up is not correct. So I'll be voting against the motion. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Councillor Solomon and then Deputy Mayor.
Just quickly, I'll for this motion, I'll be voting for this motion. I think last time I originally voted against this motion, but I'll be voting for it this time. I think some of the figures which have come out since, and going back and reflecting on those figures, it's another one of those things, and I probably sound like a broken record, but on the balance of things, looking at it, it's something which probably could be delayed by a little bit. And I would just like, obviously thank Councillor White for putting up these motions, and note that Councillor Lorna put up this motion before, and it has been the new councillors who have been willing to put their neck on the line to make sure to try and to take some of these things out of the budget, which is hard for anyone to do, but is doubly hard for new councillors coming into the role to do. And there's a lot of expectation on us in that first year. So I really thank all of the councillors who've moved motions today, but I will be supporting this motion by Councillor White.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, look, I'll be supporting this as well. Again, upon reflection and looking through some of the new information we've got, as Councillor Hughes pointed out, yes, there's a long lead time, and this might not even roll into this particular budget cycle, which is why I think we should be re-looking at the process a little bit. Maybe it's a motion on notice to find out what lead times are for the light fleet replacements, and find out where we need to strategically put that in. But to be honest, we've gone against our policies previously when we literally just can't afford to replace. And this, to me, $210,000 by delaying it this particular year, where as we know, members, $254,000 is 1% rate increase. Yes, absolutely. There's an argument here to say, well, by just delaying it, we're going to have to do it eventually. I get all that. And also by delaying it, you run the risks of the cars and needing further maintenance and everything like that. I get all that as well. But yeah, I'm still going to support this for the amount of risk that I think is in a 12-month window, while we do unpack what current market trends and lead times look like. I'm happy to move this. Well, sorry, I'm not happy. I don't think we're happy here, right? But supportive of the reasoning behind this, and it is a chunk of change that we can save this particular year. But flagging, we will have to relook at this next year with a new set of eyes and how we balance then, because it will become even more so important there.
Thank you. Councillor Koch.
I voted for this, I voted against it last time. No, I voted for to stay above the line. So I'm going to vote against it for the same reasons. The lead-in time, as Councillor Hughes said, could be 24 months. So therefore, you've got more maintenance, more chances of things breaking down, maintenance costs go up. I don't accept the view that they're in perfect condition. Well, they're 10 years old, are they? No vehicle was in perfect condition after 10 years. Is that right? Are they 10 years old?
I don't know.
How
How old are the cars in the light fleet? Just one moment, councillor
Yep.
Posh, you've asked a question. I'll just get that
Yep.
answered.
So the current policy is they're either 5 or 120, whatever's greater. So
5
effectively,
years or
depending on the
120
vehicle
120,000 cars.
pace, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So just turn that on again. Sorry, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah, my
okay.
experience with petrol cars, diesel cars now, is that this is the time that things start breaking down. This is the time, and then you spend more money repairing them. They're not perfect cars. They've done a lot of kilometres. They're not perfect. They start to wear out. That's why I've got an electric car. The other thing is, I think I think we need to be actually looking at the vehicles that we're going to replace and whether they're fit for purpose for their roles. I have some concerns that some of the vehicles aren't operational vehicles and are more commuting vehicles. And this would be an opportunity to actually redefine what those vehicles are used for. I won't go into any big detail tonight. I think it's probably for another time, probably in confidence, but I think we really need to be looking at those vehicles and how and what they're actually doing at the workplace. I think, and this is an opportunity to change the configuration of those vehicles. So what I think will be more efficient and effective work vehicles than what I think they are at the moment. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted it to stay above the line. Because if it goes below the line, we will be 2 years, maybe 2.5 years down the track, and we will still have those vehicles which I don't think are working at optimum and are costing us money because they're not working at optimum. At optimum. And I don't want to, as I said, I don't want to go into details tonight because I think it's something we should discuss in confidence. But that's the reason why I voted that we should be replacing those vehicles because of the savings I reckon we can make long term by just changing the configuration of those vehicles. So I'll be voting against this, and I hope others do. And then maybe down the track I can talk in confidence of around the reasons why of what I'm saying tonight. So
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Any other? If not, councillor White, you can wrap up the debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you everyone again for your input. Councillor Kosh, I see where you're coming from. I'm actually going to flip that a little bit and say we can do exactly what you're proposing by still putting this below the line. A little bit of information that was provided to us about the 5 cars: Mitsubishi Outlander, Volkswagen, Nissan X-Trail, Mazda CX-5 and a Subaru Forester. So yes, a number of those are commuter cars. I also understand where members are coming from in regards to the lengthy waiting time. A lot of that was due to COVID initially, and there was at least a 12-month waiting time. That is starting to catch up the industry. In 12 months' time does not necessarily mean it will still be a 12 to 18 months' time. It might be down to 6 months by then. The supply chain catches up. That's how the global system works. It will catch up over time. So saying that at this point is, we don't actually know what it's going to look like. However, by moving this below the line, we can review what is going on at that point in time in the next financial year. I think that definitely looking at redefining the roles of the vehicles is important. Potentially this could be a motion on notice before next year's budget to have a look at how these cars are being used and whether maybe there is potential for different sorts of vehicles depending on their uses. And lastly, to conclude this motion, I guess, again, it comes back to, at this point in time, we should be thinking conservatively. We need to be cognizant of what ratepayers want. And if we are spending $210,000 on replacing vehicles for staff, That's not going to sit well with ratepayers. And at the end of the day, Deputy Mayor, I need to have to borrow your your analogy there, the shareholders, where the board of directors, our shareholders will not be happy if our company is getting 5 new vehicles that they can't use. It's the same here. Community are paying rates and they're struggling. And if they see that council are spending $210,000 to replace their fleet, that is not going to sit well with them. So I think there's many things that have been discussed tonight, but at the end of the day, currently we are in a consolidation position. We need to be very, very mindful of how hard it is for our ratepayers. And this is a very, very good saving that is going to bring the increase of our rates down again. So I please ask my fellow elected members to support this, and thank you very much.
The debate is closed. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, it is carried. Thank you. Division. Councillor Vallelonga has called a division. I'll just allow the minute taker to catch up. All those in favour, please stand. I'll just allow the minute taker, Chris. How are we going there? Just keep standing. It's okay. It's just good to have accurate minutes. So Councillor Jim Vallelonga called for a division, declared the vote set aside. All those in favour are Councillor Lorna, Councillor White, Councillor Davies, Councillor Vallelonga, Deputy Mayor Shanks, Councillor Solomon, Councillor Hennessy, Councillor Samble. All those against are Councillor Kosh and Councillor Hughes. The vote is carried. Thank you. So we've got that. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So that concludes your motions, Councillor White. So sorry? I beg your pardon? No, it's one motion. It's one motion. One motion. You had chance to ask questions beforehand because Deputy Mayor sent this in good time. So Deputy Mayor, you've got the floor.
Thank you. And then thank you also to staff, assuming Sharon and her team, for providing the definitions there. I only
Yes,
had time to
I think
provide
that was really helpful.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Wendy, and your team, because I quickly pumped out the numbers, and then when I was ready to press send, I realised, well, these make sense to me, but so I appreciate.
Went through them and wrote them down separately.
I apologise for
Sorry.
that.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't as efficient as what I'd like it to be, but anyway, yeah, look, members, this is my attempt of just saving dollars wherever possible. You've heard me harp on, for those that are repeating in following on for your next term, you've heard me harp on in previous budget discussions where I can see when we're looking at round figures. Now, this isn't a crack at staff because we do it in our industry as well, absolutely. But the risk of taking $1,000 off these, what I deem round figures of where we've rounded up, just brings us a smidgen below over multiple items. And if I kept on going, I'm sure I would have been able to find more. But by taking $1,000 off of these worthy projects, no argument there. You know, in some of these projects, we're lowering the budget bid from $500,000 down to $499,000. Now, if we get this wrong, the risk of losing $1,000 isn't going to be the problem there on that particular budget bid. So I have tried to strategically share it across what I deem some of those round figures. And I'm trying to test the waters a little bit to see how this works, and maybe a strategy that we can look at again in the future. But it is a low risk, high reward, in my opinion. When we talk about dollars, this is how we would save it if this was a company we were running. Sorry, if this was a private company, but this is how we try to do it. So I hope I can get some support here, and yeah, we'll see how we go.
Seconded by Councillor Samble. I'll just allow Chris to allocate that discussion. Councillor Lorna, saw you first, and then Councillor Hughes. Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm in support of this motion as the same as what Deputy Mayor Shanks does. I do the same thing in my business, the business that I work for. And I'll look at all the projects that are coming through and shave off where I can shave off. That's not going to have a drastic impact on the delivery of the project, and then put it back out to those that are tendering for it to come in and at that value, basically. So I think it's a very good opportunity to shave a sizable amount of money off of our budget. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I generally support it, but I'd like to move an amendment which basically just removes 4 of them, which the staff have actually recommended. And those 4 are the tree management strategy, the road patch and repair, delivery of building asset renewal, and the aquatic
Hang on a minute.
filtration improvements.
You've mentioned the tree management strategy and then I lost you.
The
Sorry.
road patch and repair. I can give you,
Eight, patch and repair roads, yep.
yep, and deliver building asset renewal
Where's that? 18, thank you.
and aquatic filtration improvements.
So CEO, that amendment, is that a minor amendment or a major amendment? Is that an amendment, basically, I'm asking?
Yeah, I would see that as an amendment, a minor amendment.
So we've got an amendment moved by councillor Hughes. I've just checked with the CEO, he's saying it's a minor amendment, so I'll accept that as an amendment. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? You can, I don't think you can. I think I saw councillor Kosh. I'll accept the seconder as councillor Kosh. So we'll deal with the amendment, which is removing, just so we're clear, CEO, can you read out what is being removed? So we've got 5, 8, 18 and 24. Is that correct?
The tree management matter, the road patching
Yes.
initiative, the building assessment review and the aquatic filtration.
Okay. All right. So just so we're clear, so is everyone clear on that amendment? Okay. We have a seconder, which is councillor Kosh. Chris? Any discussion on the amendment? No. Do you wish to speak to the amendment? Yep.
Yeah, just briefly, the recommendation from staff is that basically these 4 budget lines are really tight, and based on previous looking at procurement processes and getting scoping these projects, it's going to be difficult to actually get a really the top-notch result. I know it's only $1,000, but when you're patching roads and repairing them, $1,000, when we've got such a massive backload of works, and there is a long list of roads to patch and repair. But also, these are major projects as well, like the aquatic filtration. There's been a lot of work and a lot of estimates to get that funding allocation to deliver that works.
Yeah.
The building renewal and the tree management strategy. We want to get the best outcome. I mean, there's nothing to say that when the staff go through these processes, they're not going to save $2,000 or $5,000, which is what normally happens with these budget processes anyway. If councillors notice in our monthly council reports, there's often major underspends in some areas. So it comes through. In some ways, I mean, dealing with budgets, you're going to have unders and overs, but we actually have allocated a set amount for this. So the staff will have to come back to us, which will cost money and everything else if the tenders all end up over. And with road repairs, we need every cent on our roads. So yeah, I'd ask councillors to please support this motion.
So just on amendments, just so we're clear, I've just checked the procedures at meetings regulations 2013. A person who moves or seconds an amendment and if he or she chooses to do so, speaks to the amendment, will in so doing be taken to have spoken to the motion to which the amendment relates, just so we're clear. I just thought I'd read that out, just so everyone's clear. So councillor Hughes has spoken to the amendment, and so he has spoken to the motion that the amendment relates to. Does that make sense? I think I've got that right, haven't I? Yes. Councillor Hennessy, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the clarification. It does help. I'm going to support the amendment. I think we need to work with staff, and when they point out the critical ones, I'm very happy to take that on board. But I will also foreshadow that I'm going to move a motion seeking, once the budget process is finished, seeking a debrief workshop so that we can sit with staff and discuss a number of things, including what I perceive as some systemic problems that we have that cause the staff to perhaps, in our eyes, overestimate some things. I suspect it's tied to the budget savings we require them to make on a quarterly basis. There's some other processes in there, depreciation and the constant capital project rollover that I'd also like to see in that debrief, but I think that's for a time when we've got this budget through, and then we can sit and reflect and ask those questions. So I support the amendment.
I look forward to that motion on notice, councillor Hennessy. Councillor Davies, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so this one's just a question. I recall we had our training workshop, and I think the lawyers clarified that the current system is that everyone can speak to an amendment, including the move of the original motion, but can only speak about the amendment. Because that's what I recall from our training session on that.
Well, I'm reading from the regulations, and it says a person who moves or seconds an amendment and if he or she chooses to do so, speaks to the amendment. So that's critical that they speak to the amendment, will in so doing be taken to have spoken to the motion to which the amendment relates.
So, but only for the mover and seconder of the amendment?
Mover and seconder.
Okay, so everyone else still can
Yes.
speak to the amendment and to the motion.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make that very clear. Okay, you can only speak once, and you need to seek leave to speak again. Okay, yeah.
My understanding of it was that we get to speak to the amendment only, but then we also get to speak to the actual original motion. That was my understanding from what Councillor Davies is saying as well. That's your understanding? Correct.
I know that's what they said, but it doesn't actually make that clear in the regulations. I don't know where that would be. Where would that be, CEO? Show me where it is.
Well, I don't know what councillor Davies is referring to, but the provisions of the meeting haven't been changed, and all the training I've attended to is that it's one stream of conversation. And then the amendment is part of that conversation. Whether a motion has an amendment or not, a motion is such that you speak once. Now, you can speak twice, but with leave of the meeting. Whether you're speaking to the motion, the amendment or the original motion, you speak once.
Okay. I know that's what police said, and I didn't quite get that because it doesn't make that clear in the regulations. But a person who moves or seconds an amendment and speaks to that, they've taken to have spoken to the motion to which the amendment relates. So that's why I read that out. Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? If not, I'm going to put that amendment, and we understand what the amendment is. Everyone's clear on what the amendment is. It's all up there. I'm going to put that amendment. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? The amendment is carried. It is carried. Thank you. So now we go back to our motion. Our motion has been changed slightly. Any other discussion on councillor Davies?
Yeah, I'm happy to support this. This is something that, you know, it's, as councillor Hennessy was saying, a lot of this is, it's not necessarily even saving so much as a more accurate upfront cost. And I understand why staff, like, if we did it the other direction where we estimated low and we kept going over budget, the community and the media would say irresponsible council, budget blowout. And, you know, whereas if we aim high and then, you know, and it comes in under budget, suddenly it's savings. And I understand that, but, you know, I think it's also just in this time where we're trying to find all our savings, if we can bring things down to be a little more accurate in the initial thing, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Councillor Koch, you haven't spoken yet.
Look, I'll be voting against this. In all our budgets, there's unders and overs, and over the distance, it evens out because we have quarter reviews and money gets moved around, and we get the services done that we need to get done, and the capital works done that we need to get done. By taking the money off, I think it's taking out the contingency in that budget that I think the project managers actually work with. Because I mean, I've done a lot of projects and I always factor in a contingency budget, it's percentage, and invariably I use that contingency because there are things that happen. So by taking the money out, you're taking that contingency out and you're making it more stressful for the project managers. So I think they've more or less, but I found over the years, more or less the estimations are about right. As I said, there's some ups and there's some downs, but overall it evens out. So I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. First of all, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for putting forward this motion. I think it's a really great motion. I also want to acknowledge staff who have obviously done a significant work in reducing costs, getting budgets as accurate as possible. I'm happy to support this motion as it stands at the moment. I guess my concern I just wanted to express was staff were all happy with all bar 4 of these 27 responses with no comment about how it's saying that it will be impacted to, you know, they're basically not anticipated to be impacted. My worry with that is we base our rates off our budget, and even if we fall short, you know, that we have those savings, but our rates are based off that budget. So I think what Councillor Hennessy is saying here is that if we are already over forecasting, even though we know we could have saved that $24,000 over holistically, that's what we base our rates on. So I guess I'm a little bit concerned that if staff are saying, hey, that's all good, we can just take $1,000, no worries. Why wasn't that done? Okay. Why wasn't that done from the very beginning? That would be my question.
Who would like to answer that? Sharon?
I think I think you probably need to, yes, the response was, yep, okay. There was 4 particular projects that we were concerned about with regard to reducing the budgets. When staff put the budgets bids together, they do go through a rigorous process to determine the best estimate based on the information that they have available at the time to determine how much they think the cost of the projects or the proposals are actually going to go. Obviously, we use, again, seeking information from suppliers, looking at other councils who've done similar things to determine those costs. So I think it's probably a miscarriage to say that because we're saying it's okay now, why didn't we do it first? I think we said, yes, okay, because we know what your position is, and realistically, it's whether we said yes or no, the decision is in your position, in your hands anyway. But I just think it's a bit harsh on staff who do put a lot of time and effort in actually coming up to the budget. We know that the community do not like high rates. We know that, however, they do want the service delivered, and we actually know how much it costs to deliver those services. And we have actually, across the board, all councils, we're not alone, have actually seen that the cost increases. And yep, the community has, but we have as well. And it is that question of balancing effectively delivering the services and being able to deliver the expectations of the council and the community within the budget. So I don't know if Wendy wants to add anything more, but yeah, I just think we do take time and effort, and we do have information. Yes, we may be subject to higher costs because of the nature of the fact that from a council perspective, this always the general perception that it's government and that there's a bottomless pit, but we can't do that when we actually go through competitive processes. And yes, we can keep on going out, but that's actually a cost as well. You know, so there is a transactional cost for us. There's a transactional cost for the providers. And again, if we add those transactional costs by keep on going out because we're saying that we're not happy with the price, we won't get any responses at all, and so we won't be able to deliver what the community wants. So it is a trade-off, but and we're just doing the best that we can, knowing what the community wants, what you want around the table, but also what we know we can actually deliver with the resources that we've actually got.
I think you've articulated that very, very well. Thank you, Sharon, for that clarification. I think that might have helped Councillor White. Wendy, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think what's really important to understand is none of these works are tendered works. We're not putting in these budgets based on tendered prices. And if we had the tendered prices, we would still have a contingency, which, you know, we estimate is unknown. So many of these are worked out on the current unit rates we've got, but that doesn't mean that we will be out doing a footpath and something unknown isn't going to happen. So as I say, these are estimated based on previous contracts and our current unit rates. They've all got contingencies within them because stuff happens on site. So the ones that I've pushed back on are the ones where I'm saying, in all honesty, I don't think I can even push my contingency because these have got tight constraints around them. But really, you know, the $1,000 we're taking off of the rest of these are effectively eating into what will be the contingency. And, you know, market rates are fluctuating a lot, but they're more going up than down. And so, you know, staff are working really hard to actually work within budgets to deliver what it has been expected historically within a certain amount. It's quite a complex delivery space. So it isn't just it's easy to take $1,000 off. This is I can work within $1,000 less contingency and still try and deliver the best outcome.
Thank you, Wendy. That was articulated exceptionally well. Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. No, first of all, I just want to really clear, I in no way at all have anything against this. I understand the staff have worked extremely hard, and I do not want to at any point think that I'm knocking them at all. And I thank Wendy and Sharon for their responses through you, Mayor. That explains a little bit. I guess I was just coming from the point of view at looking at the information black and white, but getting that follow-up really appreciate. So yeah, I just wanted to clear that and thank you both very, very much.
Okay.
I think we can all appreciate the work that you all and the staff do.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor White. Any other discussion, Councillor Solomon?
I just want to say, I think I'll be supporting this motion, but to me, it is it's something which only should be done when it's a must. If we were looking at a 2% rate rise, to me, and we weren't in the middle of a cost of living crisis, I think you'd have a really hard time convincing me that this was the right thing to do, because those contingencies are there for a reason. So I understand you know, what Councillor Shanks says, that if you were in a private company and you were looking to cut costs in a really hard time, this is what you would be doing. But to me, it's something which, should only really be done for necessity. And if, when I support this tonight, that's the reason that I'm doing it for. Thank, everyone. I think we're all here for the same reason, council members, staff. We all want, we all want what's best for the community, and I really want to acknowledge that.
Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor, are you happy for me? You want to wrap up the debate? Yep, no problem.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the contributions, not only from the elected body, but from staff as well. I think it's pretty clear my intent, and there is no malice in this intent at all, which I'm comfortable in being able to clearly identify in the way that I've gone about it. I acknowledge the amendment getting up and, working in with staff, picking up on Councillor Hennessy's point. Absolutely, I understand that and that give and take. I didn't vote against the amendment because, again, of malice intent, just to be clear. When we talk about contingencies and when we work in project management, which is what I do, 50 to 60 hours a week, well, the contingency doesn't come down to $1,000 on a $90,000 project, for example. I absolutely agree with Wendy that we do have those buffers in our allowances. But when we talk about those buffers across our categories, when we're doing our estimates, if we're not as bang on as we can, it doesn't really matter if it's a surplus or a deficit. We need to be working in a range of a percentage. I'll remind members on the great news of the Ryde Street tree planting project, for example. I think that came in around $34,000. We had a $50,000 allowance. Fantastic. That will help offset where there are some unforeseen costs that come up about, and I don't disagree with the balancing act this takes. That's why I've taken such a small skim off of a small amount of items on a $35 million budget. So just to make that clear, the $22,000 that this motion will now be, yes, again, not cattle stations, but it is something that I'd like to keep on talking through. I love Councillor Hennessy's idea on a debrief and workshop after the fact. That's a new process that I'm looking forward to unpacking a bit more. But yeah, look, members, again, this is just my way of just trying to save a little bit of money with a little bit of risk. Yes, I know the pressure that it does put on contingencies and what that's going to come back in, but the risk spread over multiple items like this, I think, is a really low risk because again, we're talking a very low percentage across multiple projects. So I don't want to confuse by saying we're cutting the back end out of these projects or worthy projects. So I hope I can get some support with this and move forward with the process in this saving.
The debate is now closed. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? I'll just do that again. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, you're next. We'll do that and then we'll have a break.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realise mine was next again. Yeah, look, another project, right, that we would love to be able to see happen, but unfortunately, it's one of those ones where in this particular budget climate that we're in right now, that's a $30,000 saving that I absolutely merit of the project. I get it, but when we're trying to chase savings, that one was something we did question last time, but I've pulled the trigger just to open up the debate. But that's something that I see as something we can move below the line this financial year, but definitely revisit it in the future to come because of the way we've been dealing with these in the past. The return on investment this particular year, I'm just still not quite comfortable with that sort of expenditure for this particular item. once again, merit, absolutely, just timing. So, yeah, that's that one.
Are you happy to second that, councillor Hughes? Do you wish to speak at all? Yep.
Yeah,
no worries.
just briefly, yeah, it's something we have deferred in the past. Staff say that they can cover it with existing. It just means more time to set up and shift. And I have noticed at different times, the community do shift them because they're not
They do.
fixed.
They
And
do shift them.
but so that means that staff then do have to check on them. So there is a cost. It's not that we're saving 30,000. We can have 2 or 3 times of the year in 1 year where those gates or those banners or barriers have to be put in place, and then staff have to check on them all day, unfortunately. And it becomes a bit of a community spectacle to see how high the fort sort of cross as well. So yeah, you get quite a big crowd at different times, which is good as well. But yeah, so it's not a straight saving of 30,000, but I do see that this is a saving at this time, and yeah, we'll support it.
Any discussion on this matter? If not, Deputy Mayor, you happy for me to put the motion? I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. I will continue, councillor Solomon. If you'd like to present your motion, and then we'll see, and then we'll go to councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, is it possible to amend it to merge the two together, so to reduce it to 10,000?
That
And
reduces the allocated amount for budget item support for community. It was in the draft
so actually,
budget.
yeah, so in
I
that
think
case,
that's
the-
okay. I think
yeah.
that's okay. Because
Yeah,
it was in as a budget bid as 20,
yeah,
360, I think, back to 10,000. I think that clarifies that you put in a budget of 20, but it's
Yeah.
you're wanting to reduce it now.
it's just that being taken out of that activation budget. I've had some conversations about that. And look, I'm happy to, I guess, entertain
I'm
that
not,
idea.
I don't know if I've
so-
been in with those conversations.
No, I mean, that's what's in councillor Hennessy's motion there.
Yeah, but you're
Yeah.
presenting your motion.
Yeah, which,
Do you want to combine the
I-
two? Do you want to combine the two? Is that what
yes,
you are
yeah,
asking?
yeah.
Okay, now I'm with you.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
be allocated from council's event activation budget. Okay, so maybe Chris, I'll just give Chris some advice. So Chris, with the next, if you
I'll
want
just
to,
withdraw.
you
If
wanna-
it's easier to withdraw it, and then we can go to councillor Hennessy's motion. And then I'll just, yeah, that's fine.
do you want to withdraw your motion and go to councillor Hennessy's
Yep,
motion?
Would
Would that be a better way?
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Are you happy
I'll
with, you
I'll
happy?
withdraw that motion. Yep, that's fine.
Okay, withdrew the motion, so are you comfortable with that? You quite comfortable with that?
Yes, as long as that, and I see that's correct. And now originally it said $1,000 in
Yeah,
the
that's been
fee, but that's
changed.
been changed, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, so so you're happy to withdraw the motion? That's been withdrawn, okay? So now we're going to move to councillor Hennessy's motion. Yeah. What,
Would suggest that it's that it read that it's up to $10,000, just so that money can go back. It's clear that money can go back into the activation budget if $10,000 isn't spent on the Christmas parade. So it just says up to, rather than a round amount of $10,000.
I'm not following you. No, what that says, what your motion says is that the 20,000 allocation for Christmas parade be moved below the line and a 10,000 amount be allocated from council's event activation. Okay, so councillor Hennessy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank councillor Solomon for his collaboration on this matter. I think we're of the same mind. Whether it's up to 10,000 or 10,000, I'm not. Yeah, I think if there's any savings, it will leave that money because we're going to take it from the activation budget it will stay, the remainder will stay within the activation budget, so I'm comfortable with that. I think there's been lots of discussion on this. I feel that this is it's a win-win. We are supporting the community-driven project, which I'm very much in support with. But it does allow us to use a part of the budget, which was explained to us is exactly for this reason. It then therefore then provides us with a timing situation that gets us through this year and allows us with the completion of the 5-year contract. It then allows us some flexibility to perhaps use this year as a pilot project. And then we can use the findings from this year into where we go next with Christmas celebrations. As I said in my preamble, we've all heard both through delegations and probably individual feedback that is the amount that we're spending on these Christmas functions is getting a little out of hand, and we need to show some conservativeness on this. And I think this is possibly the best way forward. So I seek your support. Thank you.
You happy to second, councillor Solomon?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second that. And I thank councillor Hennessy for that motion as well. I think this is the point which I, would have liked the motion to get to originally. I think it does it well. At the end of the day, if we're supporting a Christmas parade, the community doesn't necessarily care where that money's coming from in our budget lines, but it's in there. Having had some of those conversations since the original time I put in that budget item, we've discovered that there's in excess of $20,000 in the activation budget, which is currently left over this year, which gives us plenty of room for that $10,000 to come out of that. I think that it does still do exactly what I originally wanted and had intended to do, which is signal to the community that we are supportive of this initiative and that we are willing to support them in that, and hopefully it goes ahead and it's very successful. But it does mean that we are still being fiscally responsible, and we've found a way to fund it from another budget line which has a surplus of over $20,000 in it. And then of course, Councillor Hennessy's mentioned that bit in there about the any surplus from the Christmas street decorations. So there's another additional amount again, which I think would appropriately address that. Having spoken to some members of that group as well, the cost that they were looking at was more like 10,000. I won't go into too much detail, but sponsorship talks have been ongoing there, and they do think that they will have capacity to fund street closures that may be in excess of that $10,000 if that were to occur. So I think that appropriately encapsulates everything that was in the original motion, puts that out there that we are really supportive of this project and does it in what is a fiscally responsible way. Thank you.
Any other discussion, councillor Samble?
Yes, Mayor Karen, I'm a little bit confused about this, and also I've had people from clubs and groups that have organised similar things like this before, because as you know, we just about fully sponsor the Christmas carols, which have been very successful. And as Councillor Hennessy said about the decorations and all that, and we're now going to spend approved of $10,000. And as it said here, between the group and other community stakeholders, well, do we at this point know if the group and other community stakeholders are going to put money into this, and to how it's going to operate, and is this going to be a council organised event?
Well, $10,000 from the activation budget will go towards a Christmas parade. I look forward to hearing more about sponsorship. We haven't heard about that. That hasn't been sent through. Have you been contacted, David Barrett? Yes, you have. Beautiful. I beg your pardon? So you know who the sponsor, okay, we won't go there. But there are potential sponsors, apparently. You don't know, David, but I guess that will become clear over time. So I have no knowledge of any sponsors. However, clearly some members are aware of discussions being had. So we'll leave it at that for the moment, I guess. Councillor White.
Just to provide a little bit more information, I believe there is another community meeting this Sunday at 2:00 at Cafe Nova. So some of that
Yeah,
there may
we
be answers.
received
to
in
that.
it, yes.
Yes.
Thank
So
you very much.
that's
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put, the debate is closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, it is carried. Thank you. So that concludes, oh, sorry. Councillor Solomon has called a division. I'll just allow Chris to put that in. Councillor Solomon has called a division. So all those in favour, please stand and I'll call out your names. Councillor Lorna, Councillor White, Councillor Davies, Councillor Vallelonga, Deputy Mayor Shanks, Councillor Solomon, Councillor Hennessy. All those against are Councillor Kosh, Councillor Hughes and Councillor Samble. So we'll just allow the minute taker to document that. The motion is carried. Thank you. You may sit down. So we're going to have a break now before we go on to our decision and just stretch our legs. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I think we'll get going again, everyone. Thank you. If everyone can take their seats. Thank you.
What are you doing with this budget? Because that's going to change.
It's fees and charges first. Sorry?
Doesn't it? Sorry,
As amended.
7%.
No. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay. I am on page 12 of our agenda. And I'm looking at adoption of fees and charges. Are you happy to move that way, councillor Hughes?
Yes, I am. Going through the fees and charges, a lot of the rise is 3.5%. There's a few 7.5%, which is be around the CPI, but overall, I think it's quite fair and reasonable. So yeah, I'll move the motion.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Vallelonga. I'll just make sure. Thank you. Discussion, councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a different point of view. We're told that the average is between 3.5% and 4.5%. I went through the list. There are 12 items that are over 7%. And I chose 7.5% because I knew that was the Adelaide CPI. Some of them rise up to 48%. Others are several to 25%. I'm uncomfortable in the present situation. I understand about fees and charges, and I know they need to be reviewed on an annual basis, but I'd like to move an amendment that we pass this, but we adjust it so that none of the rises are more than 7.5% in line with the Adelaide CPI.
So you're moving an amendment?
Yes, please.
CEO, is that a significant amendment or is that a minor amendment?
Well, it's a significant amendment in the context of the fees and charges, but in the context of the motion and the constitution of the motion, would otherwise suggest it's a minor variation or a minor amendment. So
You consider it a minor amendment?
I consider it an amendment.
Okay, so I'll accept that amendment. So you've spoken to this amendment. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Do I have a seconder for the amendment? I'll ask for a seconder first. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Thank you, councillor Solomon. Now accept your question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I know we've got a lot of figures here, but I'm just wondering if I could ask through you, Mayor, what dollars are we talking about here, going across the board? Obviously, that's going to help.
I don't know if Sharon's able to answer that question. She's looking through. So I don't think we can answer that question tonight. David Barrett.
Just through the chair, I just want to raise a concern around limiting to a CPI value, where we have, for example, a staff charge on page 6 of our attachments for agency staffing, which is out of our control. The agency costs have risen by 19.57%. We need to charge that cost on to clients using the service. Otherwise, we will be absorbing 12.5% of that cost increase that's not within our control. So I've just really got a concern with limiting, because there are some fees and charges that are out of our control, which are higher than the 7.5%.
So the agency costs are, just say that again, David.
So the staffing charge for agency costs Monday to Fridays and Saturdays have increased, and we've had to increase the charge by 19.57% because the staffing charges have also increased.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So you still want to keep to that amendment, councillor Hennessy and councillor Solomon? Yeah, so that's not changing. That's not changing. Sharon?
Just in response to Deputy Mayor's question, I suspect that for those other charges that are greater than the 7%, is that what it was, 7.5%?
Yeah.
The impact on the budget would be very minimal. Because if you look at some of those fees are effectively, it's the cost to, it's laminating. So the volume of laminating isn't, I suspect, not huge, unless David sits there and says that you get lots of people coming in and laminating stuff. So it wouldn't be significant. However, it would probably create a whole heap of cash handling issues, because because effectively those changes have been that, and I don't know if this is a situation, but previously in previous councils, what we've actually done is that we've not increased those small value items like laminating, photocopying and all that sort of stuff. We would actually go up probably in every 5 years and do a 50-cent increment across those 5 years, because it's not worth doing the minor, because it will create that a price would be $3.05.
So I'm hearing that the cost will be minimal. Is that?
So the impact on the budget will be minimal, but I think that while there's some situations where the price for the fee has gone up greater than 7%, the reason I suspect, and I would defer to David, is to sit there and, because these are such low value fees, we don't actually increase them every year, and we do a bulk, say every 5 years, when you actually get a round number, because it's a lot easier from a staffing perspective and the community to actually work with 50 cents or round dollars when they're actually paying for those charges like photocopying and laminating for what those ones are. So
thank you. I think that answers your question. Okay. Thank you, Sharon, for that clarification, and David for that clarification as well. So we have an amendment that the increase in fees and charges be limited to CPI rise of 7.5%. Moved by councillor Hennessy and seconded by councillor Solomon. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, look, I 100% get the sentiment, but I did ask that question because I think it does help provide a little bit of context in this space. I see this conversation flowing out in that workshop that I'm hoping we have as that debrief, because I feel a little bit ill-informed on pulling the trigger on the 7.5%, especially when I find a 42% increase, which is a $2.10 to $3. So obviously when we're talking about the lower, it can skew it can mess with the percentages a lot. So I do understand when we're talking about these things, and I thank staff for that clarity in we probably have been undercharging for a little while in that particular space from $2.10 that is now worth $3 on that particular charge. And when you start coming through and breaking them all down, I think that's a good debrief point after this process. The domino effect across all of these, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable to stick it to 7.5%. Again, no disrespect to Councillor Hennessy, I understand what you're doing and trying to do, but just feel a little bit uneducated in that space to pull the trigger across the whole thing. So I'll be speaking against.
Thank you. Councillor Koch, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'll be speaking against as well. I mean, originally I looked at the figures, thought, oh, gee, that's a lot. But now with the explanation, I I understand the explanation now, so I can't support it. Especially when the agency fees going up, and then we would have to wear the extra agency fee. That's just not feasible.
Okay, thank you. Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a point of clarification through you. I'm on page 12 of the attachments. So in the Gawler Home Assist program, it's got about smoke detectors
Oh, you're in the-
units.
Sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Sorry.
That's all right.
Just let me get 12.
Yeah.
So where are you?
So,
Smoke detector
Smoke
units.
detector units, so they're saying it's gonna be
$20?
$20 to $25, which is a 25%. So if this amendment passes, the extra money, would that be subsidised by council? Is that how that, yeah, that's how it would work? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
all right, that's right. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank
cover
you.
cost, because it's gone up by $5. Is that right? Yeah, it's gone up by $5. I think that clarifies that question. Thank you. You want to speak?
No,
Yeah,
that makes sense now. I see exactly where councillor Hennessy is coming from. But I think again, maybe this is a little bit rushed because we might be spending more out of our pockets when it's relatively small actual dollar figure rises. So that's right. Just wanted to clarify. Thank
no
you.
problem. Thank you very much. Any other discussion? I might go back to you, councillor Hennessy, to wrap up the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yep, I'm happy with the discussion. Of the 12 items that I've identified, I can only see one, and that was the smoke detector as being, I can't see where the others have staffing components or contract and staffing. However, I'm very happy for put this motion and let the chamber decide, but I think it's something that I certainly need more information on because I don't feel informed about how these decisions are made. And I am conscious that when somebody turns up to get some laminating for their community club and each copy is going to cost them whatever it is, that increase, and they're trying to do 30 copies for their members or whatever, we forget that that's a cost coming out of their pocket. Yes, it's a user pays, but I want to be convinced that we're both keeping ourselves neutral with the businesses in the town and we're not being unreasonable in our rises. Maybe a small rise each year is better than a huge one every 5 years. I'm not sure. Thank you.
So just so this is an amendment that the increase in fees be limited to CPI rise of 7.5%. So that's an amendment, Chris. It's not a motion. So that we are voting on that amendment. And I've accepted that amendment. So I'm going to put that amendment. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? It is lost. Thank you. So we're back to the original motion. And that is the original motion that is in our documents. Thank you. Any other, if there's no further discussion, councillor Hughes, are you happy for me to put the motion? So the debate is closed. I am now going to put this motion. So we all know the original motion. We're voting on that. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, it is carried. Thank you. Carried, yes. Where am I? Okay. Oh, yes. David Hughes, yes, if you'd like to declare your conflict, thank you.
Normally, the motion is split about the landscape levy. In this case, unfortunately, it hasn't been split, and I've looked at the motions and it's not an easy thing to do at this late stage. So as an employee of the Northern York Landscape Board, which the council collects the levy for and charges to collect the levy under the Landscape South Australia Act, it is a material conflict, so I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you. Just Local Government Act, the nature of the conflict is staff member landscapes, Northern and York Peninsula, David? Just Yorks, yeah. Northern and York with the levy collection covered within the budget and left the meeting. Okay, so he's left the meeting. Okay, so we've dealt with that conflict. So we need to change this motion just a bit, as amended. That's correct, isn't it, Sharon? So endorses in principle the draft budget as amended. It's probably not as contained in attachment 1. It's probably changed a little bit. Attachment 1 as amended, okay. Chris, are you able to, as contained in, as amended? Yes. Endorses in principle, okay. For the purpose, as contained in attachment 2, as amended. And part 3, as contained in attachment 2, as amended. As amended. That's it. Further report presented to council. Yep, okay. I'm gonna see if somebody wants to move this first. Does anyone wish to move this motion as amended? Are you happy to move that motion, councillor Koch? Do you wish to speak to it at all?
We've worked a fair bit on this budget, and tonight we've worked on it again. I'd just like people to go down to look at the right at the bottom
Where
on the
you-
agenda, pages
What page?
page probably 29, maybe. Yeah, actually, well, 28 really of the agenda, and we're just looking at the different scenarios.
Oh, right, yep, yep. So we're looking at 28 and
Yeah, 28, yep,
29
yep,
of
yep.
the agenda?
Yes,
Is that
yes,
correct?
yep, yep.
Yep.
Because originally we had a draft budget, and then and then staff went away and looked at different options. And now we've come back, and this has gone through the audit committee as well. So there's 3 scenarios, and this is basically premised on scenario 3. So it's a 7% increase plus that's rate increase plus a 0.5% overall forecast in growth. And then some discretionary rates reduced, then 2% from the recurrent budget, and I think it also must be the contract as well. Then a 50% reduction in the gifted assets. Now, the gifted assets important because the probably the development isn't as going as fast as we expected. So if the gifted assets are reduced, that means that depreciation is reduced as well. So that's important. So this
Sorry?
is,
He's still speaking.
Yep, still speaking, yep.
Sharon, I'll ask you to clarify just in a minute. Thank
Yep,
you.
yep. And then when we start looking at the financial indicators, if we look closely at page 29, we can see that our operating ratio, if we do nothing really, is -4%, which is not the best. But if you look at scenario 3, we, after a number of years, we're back into surplus, and that's really, really important. And then when we go further to look at our asset sustainability ratio, that's pretty good because we have allocated the depreciation funds, we can actually do the work on our assets. So that's important. Importantly, graph 3 on page 32, that's your net financial liability. If we had business as usual, we would be up to 120% at one stage in 28, 29. So, but scenario 3, we're actually stay within more or less just in our policy. So, and then when we go to the cash advance facility, again, it really, if we don't do anything, it bumps right up, etc. But really, what this budget will be doing is actually setting the future. If we don't do something now, we end up with our financial indicators just running out, and we'll never be able to do the bigger projects that we'd like to do. So we have to take a bit of a hit now. Because what happens, we really want to do things around Caviva, we want to do something with the pool, there's a whole range of other things, and we need to get our debt level down to create that capacity to borrow, for example. So that's why it's important that we actually have a budget that allows us to move into the future. Because if you don't do this, our financial indicators are just off the scale, and long term, that's not good for the community. Because the debt level goes up and we won't be able to provide the services we want to provide. We won't be able to provide the upgrade facilities we'd like to do. So that's why it's important that we We adopt this budget, it's only going out, we're only adopting this in principle, and it's, but it provides the framework for us to move forward. That's what I'd like people to vote for. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? There's no second, you happy to second, councillor Davies? Oh, sorry. There we go.
I mean, well, the reason I didn't move it is basically I wanted to wait to ask a question so we knew how much we were saving and whether that would affect the, is this affecting the rate or is it just affecting our debt? I just feel like that's probably the clarification that everyone's sitting there waiting on and is afraid to second or anything.
So Sharon Perkins, if you can answer, are you able to answer that question?
Through the chair. So basically, as a result of the motions that were passed previously, so without any change in the rate revenue increase, as per presented in budget, the deficit would be reduced down to just over $1 million with those changes, and then the capital program would be reduced by around 200,000. 250, so that would actually reduce, I suppose, the funding requirements to actually deliver the capital works program. So,
the impact, the question was around a rate rise. So the impact on that, can you provide some clarification there?
Personally, I wouldn't be recommending any change into in the rate rise, because again, in relation to the I suppose the audit committee's recommendation was that the council had to actually make savings this year, plus also implement strategies to actually ensure that you could actually return to an operating surplus position.
Yes.
Within 3 years. So that's the context of what the I suppose the budget recommendation and the rate increase has been recommended.
Yeah.
So on initial modelling, so for an average residential ratepayer, the rate increase as it stands at this point in time today would be around about $90.
Yep.
And that equates to around about 5.2% for that average residential property.
So we're going to be audited by, is it Escosa in August, late next year? Is that correct? And what sort of processes do we need to have in place to ensure that we are financially sustainable? Just preparing for that audit.
Yeah, so effectively, as part of the 24-25 budget process, that will actually be subject to the Escosa review. The Escosa review or independent rate oversight,
Yes.
I think that's what it's actually called, effectively takes into account historical information, how we've performed in the past, how we've actually performed in relation to the operating result also, but compared to delivery on asset management plans and also long-term financial plans and your community and other strategic documents.
Yes.
And it also looks into, from a budgeting perspective, how those linkages and how the rate increases that, or the budgets that are setting and the rates that's being collected, is that actually providing the value for money to your community in line with what you've actually been telling the community with the plans that you have actually gone out with.
Yeah.
So we're subject to that for the 24-25
Yes.
financial
Yeah.
year, and that will be our budget.
So that what we do now will feed into that.
So it will feed into that
Yeah.
and effectively,
Yeah.
and making sure that we are financially sustainable and
Yeah.
that we can continue to deliver the services and deliver the community
Yeah.
needs with what we've got today, but also into the future. So, personally, but realistically, if you drop the rate revenue, as I said, 1% rate revenue, This year, we'll have around about a $250,000 gross impact on the bottom line. So that would basically, you'd take,
Increase the deficit.
you'd
It'll
take your
increase.
deficit back to where it was when you started the night.
Yeah.
But again, it's not necessarily the impact that it actually has today. It will actually make sure it will defer your ability to actually deliver that operating surplus within that 3-year timeframe. Because you don't have the cumulative impact of a small 0.5%, which is $128,000 this year, has a massive cumulative effect over an extended period of time. So realistically, if we drop our rates by 1% today, our rate revenue by 1% today, by the end of the thing, we're $2.7 million behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, so
from that perspective,
and that
so-
affects the delivery of services, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
Yeah,
it does.
It will
Yeah.
affect the timeframe, unless you can find other sources of revenue. And we all know that from a local government perspective, our opportunity to source other sorts of revenue is very hard. From that perspective, and obviously it's probably, makes it harder as well when effectively you're deferring the economic development officer, which potentially could be a position that could have generated some activity and promotion and within the council area. So I personally wouldn't be recommending it, but obviously it's up to you. Again, I'm still fairly confident with the CPI forecast of around about 6%, 6.5%.
Yeah.
And then again, it is that thing about, it is that budget repair position of 0.5%, which is quite minor across, $128,000 across the whole rating base. It is quite a minor increase, minor amount for each of the individual ratepayers as well. I do hear that everyone's doing it tough, but council's doing it tough as well. And there is a point where our capacity will actually be severely impacted to deliver what we need to do now, but also we will be having the same conversation next year about, we can't afford to do that this year. We can't afford to do these things again this year. So we'll be putting them down the line, below the line again.
Look, I'd really like to thank you for giving us sound advice without fear or favour. That is what you are there to do, and you've just done that. And I think everyone around the room appreciates your honest reflection. You are the expert in the room, Sharon, and I really appreciate what you've just said, and I'm sure everyone around the room has taken that on board. Councillor Davies?
Yeah, just to speak to it now. I figured that was the case. I just wanted to clarify it because I think a lot of people have the idea that our spendings just go directly into rates, and when we cut something, the rates go down a little bit. But to be clear, everything that we've been cutting were things that we were funding with our own debt. So what we've been reducing is our debt, not our rates. As Sharon said, the rates, we have a financial responsibility for the council to not collapse. And if there's a minimum level of increased rates we have to have, then that's what we need to deal with. But that's not to say that reducing the debt is meaningless. This is space that will allow us in the future to have more breathing room for when things need to be done. When we do get grant opportunities, for example, and we have to match them 50-50, having a lower liability ratio, etc., means that we can afford to do it in the first place and take advantage of, for example, if something came around about our swimming pool or Carbeathan, or the other things that are major projects that we want to do. Having a lower debt means that we've got more room to take on debt on
Yes.
things that matter to us in a very efficient way in which the government's paying for half of it, for example. So, yeah, just to say, we've saved a lot of money. I'm not sure if the exact number compared to the previous budget has been stated, but it's in the upward of 500,000. Well, it was already upwards of 500,000 from what staff suggested, and then we've cut another, I don't know, 400 or something like that.
Yeah.
So we've cut something close to $1 million in debt
Yes.
over the course of this meeting.
Yes.
It's not necessarily going to reduce the rates because that's not how that works, but it is a quite meaningful savings, I think, we've made.
Look, I thank you for those comments. I think that this has not been an easy process, but these are tough decisions that we have to make. And, you know, I thank the elected members for putting up the motions on notice. We've had a really good crack at it. So you know, I'm the one that's going to have to deliver the news, but let's keep going. Any other discussion? Councillor Hennessy and then Councillor Samble.
Thank you, Mayor, and I strongly echo your words of support for Sharon and her team in getting this ready. I'd like to zero in, please, on the third part of the recommendation, which is talking about releasing this document out for public consultation. And I've got a series of questions. Some I suspect might be needed to take on motion, on notice. But we're presenting a report to our community. It's an educated community, and I've got some problems with, heaven help me, some of them are proofreading problems. But the first question is, could somebody please explain why the Business Innovation Hub is costed in with libraries and communities rather than being an economic development and tourism cost? And that sits on, I've got a paper copy on page 27 of 71. I think that's open for.
I'll take that. I'll take that to Sharon Perkins. Thank you, Sharon.
Through the chair. I do take that on notice, and I would sit there and say that there probably actually does need some refinement in relation to making sure that I suppose the functions and the costs of some of those things are fairly reflective of economic development or those functions. The initial cut is based on how the information is collected at particular level in the finance system, which basically will be refined as we go through the process. So this is the first, from my reading of the annual business plan that's been presented to the community in previously. This is the first year it's been, I suppose, presented in this manner. So it is a work in progress. I'm not saying that the classifications are 100% right from that perspective, and that will be further refined as we go through from the time from adoption
I hope that
and all that sort of
addresses
stuff.
that first question. The second, so
Thank you, and yes, that does. And I do like the format. I just reassure that. On page 28 of 71, why have under the
hang on a minute, just
Yeah.
1 moment. so that
28 of
we can
71.
catch up. So I'm sorry, I didn't catch the
Page
number.
28 of 71.
28. Yes, I've got it.
We have talked about the Gawler and District Netball Association Courts redevelopment, and we have not acknowledged the state government funding. And yet on the next page, when we're talking about Reed Reserve, we have. I think we need to be consistent, and we
Okay.
certainly need to acknowledge.
We can include that.
Yep, that would be good.
Yes.
And
Somebody's taking note. You're taking note.
Thank you.
So
And the third-
Sharon's taking note of that. Sorry, Helen.
That's okay,
keep going,
that's fine.
keep
The,
going.
the third one is simply some,
Which page you?
no, there's a series of them. There's a series of them, and I'd be much more comfortable in sending an email through.
Might be better.
There are some spelling and some, yeah,
Oh,
minor
would you-
things.
Would you mind?
I'm
sending that
very
through?
happy to send it through, but I really think that shouldn't be a role for me as an elected member.
No.
I'm looking to see that before we release any documents, and I understand the pressure that staff are working through, but we need somebody proofreading with vigor.
So how,
Thank you.
I like your suggestion of sending through, that would be really helpful. So, and that will be adjusted before it goes out. I'll just check with Sharon just to clarify that question, Helen.
Yeah, I accept that there's probably a few spelling errors and grammar and all that sort of stuff in it. And I have actually sent the document out to a number of people in the office to actually do that proofreading. And so effectively those changes will actually be happening, and we will make sure that
Thank you very
those
much for that.
proofing, but if you
Yeah.
can send them through, that would be much appreciated.
That would
because-
be really helpful. Thank you. Do you
To
have
be
any
hon-
other questions, councillor Hennessy? Thank you, councillor Samble. Councillor Samble, your turn. Yep.
Yeah, Mayor Karen, just a quick one. Today, the CEO of the Local Government Association announced the federal government quite a number of millions of dollars for projects, and that for community councils, for
Yeah.
56 council. Does that fit within what we're talking about here tonight?
I think they added extra millions for roads, I read, at excluding community infrastructure, which I think is a little bit of a shame. But that's the federal government. They've obviously got their reasons. We will probably get our costed amounts through that process, Sharon, and you wish to say something?
Sorry, I was just saying that, yeah, obviously, at this point in time, because the budget's getting handed down next week, anything that
Yeah.
we will receive without having to go through a competitive process, we will actually incorporate within the draft budget. So
Yes.
obviously one area of that, which I'm hoping they reinstate, is the supplementary road funding
Yeah, I hope
to
so too.
South Australia. And then that will actually give another boost of around about $150,000 of funding, grant funding to help maintain our roads, so as well. So any of those changes that come out of the state budget and also the federal budget will be incorporated in as we become aware and are notified of what those impacts are.
Thank you, Sharon, for those very relevant information. Any other discussion? Councillor White?
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you to Sharon for the explanation. Just a point of clarification. So I was under the impression that making these savings would reduce the rates at the end of the day. As was said multiple times in the months leading up to this, they had the figure of 200,000 reduces rates by 1% or something along those lines. And I think I understand what you've just said, Sharon. So you're saying that these savings are going to obviously, reduce our deficit, but at the end of the day, our average rates are going to stay at 7.5%. Is that?
7.0.
7, okay, sorry. And the average for residential 5.2, we saying it's staying at that?
Yeah. Because we've got a deficit. We've got a
Okay.
deficit. We haven't got rid of the deficit yet. We've still
Okay.
got a deficit. So you want to respond, Sharon? Yeah, sure, no problem.
Don't be concerned that you don't understand the concept of rates, because I can rest assure you that there's been a lot of elected members that have been on council for a long time that still don't necessarily under the relationship. So effectively, the only way that you will change your rate is if you actually change the amount of revenue that you want to collect. So basically the rate revenue is the bucket of money that we then distribute across to all the ratepayers, and that will be the one that actually changes. So you'll have to make a decision about how much revenue you're collecting for the change to be
That dictates the rates.
So yeah.
It's an operational sort of question. I know that we want to avoid.
No,
that,
I
but
think it's
just-
important
yeah.
to clarify that tonight because it's really important.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, okay, thank you, Sharon. So through the chair, I guess, when will council get the opportunity to, so just because still newly elected member, would you be able to explain the process from here till the budget is implemented, how that works with setting the rates? Like what is the timeline and how's that actual process?
We have to have the budget endorsed by August. We have until August, although it will go out. If we endorse a budget or draft budget tonight, it will go out for public consultation. That is a 3-week process. It then comes back for us to hear any public submissions that people may wish to present at a special council meeting. And then after that process, you go back and do further number crunching, and it comes back at the June council meeting. And I think the staff will be asking us to endorse a budget, but we do have until August. And if we go past August, we have to get dispensation. There's only extenuating circumstances, so it's really not a good idea to go beyond August. So have I got that right? Yep. Have I missed anything? No.
Okay.
Does that help, councillor Wong?
Yes, so I guess in regards more specifically to setting the rates.
Mm.
When,
It's the amount of revenue that we collect that dictates the rates.
yeah, when is that decision going to be made?
We will be asked to make that decision at the June council meeting.
Yeah, I see. So at that point, we can then look at the final picture pretty much and then determine the
Yeah.
rates as an elected body. Is that?
And bear in mind, we go out with a draft budget for community consultation. The community will assume that that's what we've got in the budget. So we need to be careful. We need to listen to the feedback around that. However, if we change it materially, I think we need to be a little bit careful about that, in my personal opinion.
I see. Okay. So
Does
I
that
guess,
make sense?
yeah, it does. So, yeah, so it could change, obviously, community consultation, and therefore that initiates some more changes. That's fine. I guess where I'm coming from is I just heard that rates are going to be staying where they are after all of us pretty much were on the same page about trying to get the rate rise to a minimum. And
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, hang on, that's not going to change for the
We've
ratepayer.
We've still got a deficit. We've still
So,
got.
but I'm feeling a little bit misled there because I feel like I was under the impression that by making these savings, we would keep our deficit and then the rate, our revenue would go down. Like, I'm really confused. That's the impression
So-
I was under.
So if you want to explain that,
Okay,
Sharon,
yeah.
I'll get Sharon to explain. She'll probably explain it better than I will.
Obviously, that's a decision of the chamber. That is a decision of the chamber as to whether you're happy with the existing deficit and you want to reduce the rate revenue. However, I will reiterate, I suppose the implications are as to sit there and say, yes, you also need to understand what that impact will actually have on future years as well, with regard to what from a financial sustainability perspective as well. So yeah, so it is a decision of the council as to whether they're happy with still having a $1.2 million deficit, or they much prefer having a $1 million deficit because they know that that actually provides more security to ensure that they can continue to provide the services, or that you have actually the capacity in the future to deliver some major projects that we know that the community wants and from a council perspective wants as well. Just in relation to the final rate as well. So obviously the rate, that rate revenue is distributed by capital values. We continually basically get changes in capital values pretty much right up to the death knell. So potentially that $91 depending, and we are seeing a lot of movement between our classifications. So potentially that rate or that average rate of the average residential ratepayer still may come down, because effectively it's still, it's at the moment it's 90, the model says it's 92, but in 2 weeks, if we've got a lot of changes, that potentially could come down. I don't expect there to be any movement away from the residential land use coming in, and so that will be a more positive impact as well. So from that dollar impact, that is, yeah. So,
Okay, thank you.
but if you want to come in,
Yeah,
if you have
thank
some
you.
time, I can give you
Any other discussion? we're going to run out of time. You've got one more question?
Point of clarification. I just think it's really, really important because I know that myself and
If
many.
you can ask the question now.
So
Thank you.
just to clarify what you said there, Sharon, that at the June meeting, the decision of the chamber will basically be whether we want to reduce our deficit or reduce rates. That will be a decision of council that will be in the June meeting. Is that correct? In a nutshell?
Potentially,
We're going to
that,
run out of time.
yeah,
so.
potentially. So obviously you've got between now and June to make, the chamber has made between now and June to actually make changes to the budget.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Solomon?
Just quickly, just to clarify on the avenue for making that change, is it putting up a motion for a, 6.5 and then working through the implications of that, or what's the avenue for doing, lowering a rate if we wanted to do that?
I probably won't accept a lower because I think it's a material change. If you want to do that, you need to put up a motion on notice. Yeah. That would be the avenue. No, that would be the avenue. But remember, we're going out for public consultation and you need to be clear with our community that if you're going to do that, what's the material change? Is it a higher deficit? Is it less money in the kitty? That needs to be discussed with staff. So I'd suggest you discuss that with staff if you intend to do that.
So we go out to consultation with community after this.
Yes.
So we would need to do it beforehand, but you're not going
No.
to allow us to do it beforehand
No.
because it's an amendment that's not.
No, I think it's a material change.
So there's no way for us to do that then.
You could do it, you can do it if you wish, but we're going out, we need to go out for public consultation, otherwise, yeah,
Right.
might
So
run out
you-
of time. Yeah, so I won't accept a material change at this stage. We've got a motion on the books that we're dealing with right now.
Am I missing? So, yeah. Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, okay.
I
yeah,
would
because it's coming
suggest-
back to June before going to public consultation. Yep.
Councillor Solomon, I would suggest that you discuss that with staff and come up with something that you're comfortable with. Okay? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
The question here might provide some comfort. If we receive community consultation feedback that says, no, we need you to lower your rates, we need to lower the rates. There is facility for us to be able to do that. But what we're talking about, I believe, is making sure the message is clear on the ramifications of what that is.
Yeah.
And that'll.
Because it will be either an increased deficit.
Yeah.
Or
COVID
less
services or less
delivery of
capital.
service. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there is another opportunity to have this discussion, two more opportunities moving forward to further that conversation.
Thank you. Councillor Valalonga. Are you asking for us to put the motion? That is a formal motion. Councillor Valalonga. Chris, where's Chris gone? Chris is there, I can't see her. Sorry. Chris, that is a formal motion that the motion be put by Councillor Valalonga. I need a seconder for that motion. We need a seconder for the motion. Do I have a seconder? No? Lost for one of us a seconder. We do need a seconder. Lost for, thank you, for want of a seconder. Okay, any other discussion? If not, who moved the motion? Was that you, Councillor Koch? Can you close the debate, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you for all the discussion. It's been very interesting. And it is a difficult thing, getting the budget right, because we do work out what we need and then we work out the rate that we need to apply. The rate in the dollar comes down to property value. I think it's a responsible budget. If we stay with this, we actually reduce our deficit quicker than if we don't. and we need to be responsible. There was a case in Victoria where a very big council over there was not very responsible, and they've now they had to sack a whole lot of people because they overpromised and their finances got into difficulty, and now they're in administration essentially. So yeah, this is really serious stuff. We need to be very careful because their deficit blew out so much in the hundreds of millions because they weren't responsible. And now there's an administrator. In fact, that council is the second time there's an administrator running that council. So they didn't learn the first time round. So we need to be very responsible in our budgeting, and we need a sustainable budget. And my opinion is we need to get the deficit down as soon as we can, because that opens up more opportunities for the community long term. And the last thing we want is a big debt hanging over us all the time. Thank you.
The debate is closed. I put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? I don't think somebody voted. I couldn't see everyone voting. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Sorry. All those against? It is carried. Thank you. So thank you everyone for a really tight, robust discussion. Now, where am I? I close the meeting at 10:09. Thank you, Brian, for reminding me as well.